Today, I'm going to take you through a journey, like the relation between the risk management and the strategy. So whenever you are going to develop your own strategy, you have to consider the potential risk that might happen. And then we are going to talk about the clinical risk. And then we are going to talk about the different methods and tools that we are used to analyze risk. We have two different types. We have a prospective tool, so we're looking in the future and we ask ourselves what might go wrong. Then we do analysis and then we start to develop our own plan to prevent these potential risks from happening. This is a method, and we have another method that where there is something wrong happen, let's say that for healthcare, a medical error. So we are going to know how to analyze it and how to develop a plan to prevent such a risk, which is a medical error, from re-happening again. I'm going to take you through different methods, and I believe that by the end of the day, you will be like a kind of risk management champion, inshallah. So first, let's start with the healthcare risk management. The first presentation talk about the relation between risk management and strategy. So our objective for the first presentation is to identify the relation between strategy and risk management, to identify the definition of risk. So what's risk? We're going to identify the definition of risk. And then I'm going to introduce you to the framework, the famous ISO 31000 risk management. And you are going to be introduced with such framework. And I'm going to give you one single famous event that happened in the United States, just to know that you might take one day a simple decision, but the consequences of that decision might be like a disaster. So what you need to do, you need to anticipate any potential risk that might happen. Let's start by the presentation. So we work in the healthcare. And what we do in the healthcare, we promise our clients here are patient and family, and the recipient of care. So we promise our clients that we are going to give you the best care ever. We are here to care about you. But the question is, actually, do we care about our patient? Do we could have the concept of safety in this dimension? So when you start to have, okay, we do care about you, so you start to develop your own strategy to make sure that you are going to take care and care about your clients. So in the strategy, you have components in that strategy. Number one, mission. Number two, vision. Number three, goals and objectives. So these are like the main, and you add the values. So these are like the main component of strategy. When you talk about mission, so the mission is purpose of existence. Like why you wake up early in the morning, you wash, you dress, and then you go out from home to work, to do something, right? This is your mission. So your mission is your purpose of existence, why you are here. For example, we are here, our mission is to provide excellent education for the postgraduate students in terms of MPA and Master of Healthcare Management. So our mission is to provide excellent education, okay? So you have your own mission, your purpose of existence, and then you develop your own vision. Like now I'm here in this situation, and I would like to be that after few years later on. So you said like, I would like to be like the superhero of these services in the future. So I'd like to be the leader of like provision of NPA in the world. So this would be like your vision. You look into yourself, say, I'm here now, I'm only working in this zone, but my vision is to be like the world lead whatsoever in the future. So this is your vision. And then you start to have goals and objectives. Your goals and objectives means like you have strategic goals. So you have like a few strategic goals, maybe 3, 4, maximum 5. Maximum 5 strategic goals. Maximum 5. So let's say that, for example, increase revenue. Okay. Enhance safety. Okay. Improve quality. So this will be like strategic goal. This is what you are going to work on for the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years to achieve. And then you start to have your own objectives. How we are going to achieve this? So I'm going to achieve the quality by to do that, to achieve the goal. Here comes the word risk. Here, when we are talking about risk. So, whenever you are going to develop your own strategy, so you need to have a vision, a mission, values, and goals and objectives. And when you start to do your own strategy, you have the strategy at different levels. So you might have the corporate strategy. So this is the major corporate strategy to achieve your main corporate strategic goal. Or you might have a unit strategy. For example, you have the financial strategy, you have the marketing strategy, you have, let's say, the quality strategy, you have the medical strategy, so you have like unit strategy. So, then as I said, you develop your own mission, your own purpose of existence, and then once you have the mission, you start to have the goals and objectives. So you start to work out what I would like to achieve as a strategic goal for the next few years. Example of these strategic goals, as I said, and objectives are to create a culture of safety. This is reasonable in healthcare, right? So if I'm in the healthcare, one of my strategic goals and objectives might be like to create a culture of safety. We need it. Or you might write to promote clinical excellence. Yes. Actually, at the moment, this is my clinical performance. I have encountered with a lot of clinical and medical error and bad outcomes. So my future, my strategic goal is to achieve what? To achieve and promote the clinical excellence. How to do this one? I'm going to put my strategic objectives. And then, or to enhance, for example, to enhance facility management. Or you can say that to open new extension. So my strategic goal for the next few years is to open a new extension. And this is happening frequently. By increasing revenue or integrate quality. So you have, at that moment, what you have done, you have written your own written. Only written, not implement. Only written. You have written your strategic plan. Mission, vision, strategic goals, objective to achieve. So what you need to do, you need to achieve your dream. So the next step after the strategy, you are going to execute your strategy. And what you actually expect is success. I have done everything right. I wrote an excellent strategy. If I implement my strategy, what I'm expecting is success. But the point is, sometimes lots of things go wrong. Sometimes, and actually in life, lots of things go wrong. So what can go wrong? For example, you might encounter with failure. But I did implement my strategy. Why got failure? You might got failure, I'll tell you why. So you might encounter with failure. Failure to achieve the stated objective. Or you might even end in catastrophe. That's because the organization did not identify its inherent risk. I say inherent, like within, inside. The organization did not identify its inherent risk. Or even the organization might identify the potential risks that might happen, but the organization did not develop a management plan, a risk management plan. That's why you might encounter failure or encounter a catastrophe. So, in that way, if I would like to identify risks, so what might be the risk? I will take that risk from the definition coming from the ISO 31000, which is the family for the risk management. They say that risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Or simply, risk is anything that might happen and prevent you from achieving the stated objectives. Remember strategy? I said in the strategy I have written the objectives. So anything that might happen and prevent you from achieving the stated objectives is the risk. So let's say that if I go back, I said, I would like, for example, I would like to open new extension. Okay, so what might go wrong and prevent me from opening new extension? Financial problem, right? So financial or loss of money or shortage of money is a risk, right? Because this is something that might happen and prevent me from achieving my stated objectives. So shortage of money, loss of money might prevent me from opening a new extension. Changing of law. Changing of law, yes. The rules change, so I couldn't go and open that. Or for example, you need a bigger capacity for the car parking in the new law, but the space I have is not enough. So I couldn't open the new extension. So this is a potential risk that might happen, right? So this is something that might happen and prevent me from achieving my new extension with my stated objectives. Let's say, for example, increasing revenue. So I would like to increase my revenue, so what might go wrong? A new competitors next to me opened his own facility or her facility. Potential risk, right? So that's what I'm saying. So risk is something that might happen and prevent me from achieving my stated objectives. So I'll give it to you easily. Let's assume that you would like to go for a trip. Easy, right? Now come for the New Year vacation or Christmas holiday, and you would like to go for a trip. So out is to have happy vacation. This is my stated objective, happy vacation. By going through a trip, so what might go wrong and prevent me from having happy vacation? Number one is no enough money, right? So shortage of money is a risk that interfere with my happy vacation. Maybe weather, change of weather. So if we have a storm or heavy snow, so maybe storm or heavy snow interfere with having happy vacation or be like locked at home, right? Or in the hotel. Maybe cancellation of flight. I'm going to Italy. Okay? So maybe cancellation, potential risk, right? Cancellation of the flight because of any reason. Or strike. I haven't encountered this before. Strike at the airport, that which is very famous with Lufthansa and French Airways. Strike. Or in the French trains. Or maybe, for example, let's say that no available annual leave. Right? So all of these are potential risks. So what should I do? I have to manage this. So I have to save money here. I have to check the weather for the area I'm going to. I have to, let's say, have alternative if the flight is cancelled. I have, or maybe going early. I have to have something. Sometimes I have to accept it when it happens. So this is how you can identify the potential risk. So what are these? All of these are uncertainty, something that might happen and prevent me from achieving my stated objective. What's my stated objective here is happy vacation. Okay? So this is how you can start to know. This is the definition, simply the definition of risk. What you can expect patient food, right? So simply when you saw this video again, the first thing you'll be in your mind is like the patient will fall down because there is no side rails, no bed rails. So I expected that the first thing to have patient like this in this room is the patient is going to fall. But actually, what we have noticed that there is another risk. Attending patient in a classroom alone is a risk. So what you need to do is have at least like one of your colleagues, two at least in a closed room. It's a new risk. Why? To avoid violence, to avoid potential violence, potential. Okay, so I will say, what's the definition of risk? Risk is the chance of something negative. 100% is negative. the chance of something happening that may have an impact to achieve the stated objective. Do you think it's only negative? No, it also could be positive. Because for example, you might your state objective to achieve 2,000 and something good happens so you can achieve 4,000. Again, that interferes with achieving your state objective. So by the way, risk could be negative or positive, both together. Okay. So, what might be risk? The risk might be something that might happen in your path to achieve your objectives. So you might be in your own path to achieve your own objectives. So I might be in my way to open my new extension, and then in my way to achieve my path to have the new extension, something might happen. Something might happen in that path. Or you might choose the wrong path from the beginning. And that wrong path is the risk. Sometimes when you go like to do the easy way, the easy approach, rather than the classical approach. So maybe the easy approach, you choose the easy approach, choose the wrong way. This might be risk. So now you make it so difficult. So tell me something easy. Tell us something easy to know how to write down risk. Now it's all of them like big. This is the easiest approach to identify and manage risk. This is the easiest approach to identify and manage risk. Whenever you would like to do something and you would like to identify all potential risks and then to manage this risk, the first thing you have to ask yourself, what I'm trying to achieve. You are trying to achieve an MBA, right? This is what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve an MBA, right? To get an MBA certificate or grade or whatsoever, or qualification. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. Then ask yourself, what might go wrong? What might affect me from achieving my MBA? Then, to answer these questions means you are going to initiate a brainstorming session. Right? So, what might happen, what might affect me from achieving my stated objective, which is getting MBA degree. So, what might affect me? What might affect me? Or what might go wrong? For example, you're going to ask yourself a list of obstacles, challenges that might happen and affect you from achieving your MBA. This will be the second phase. The third phase will be which one of these group are the most important. So let's say that you generate 10, and then you get the most important are 4. You generate 10, but the most important are 4. Which of these are the most important? Or you might get the first most important one. Once you know that this is the most important, you ask yourself, what should I do with it? So now you are developing management plan. What should I do with it? Remember the trip? So maybe shortage of money? So in advance saving. Remember the weather? Maybe checking the best time to go there. If I'd like to have a happy trip. Okay? So identify the most important one and then ask yourself, what should I do with it? Then you are going to develop what? You are going to develop a plan to overcome this threat. And then implement the plan, because this is plan. Then implement that. And then ask yourself, did it work? So I would say shortage of money. So I'm going to save money by doing 1, 2, 3. By after 1 month, 2 months, ask yourself, did it work? Yeah, I saved money. Lucky you, I saved money. So, did it work? Yes. Then ask yourself, finally, what has changed? Because sometimes things change. Maybe, for example, the flight price go down or up. Or maybe you get an offer. Or maybe the price go high, so you need to increase the budget again. Ask yourself, what have changed? So, the simplest approach. First, ask yourself, what we are trying to do. Then, what might happen and affect me from achieving what I'm trying to do? You will get a big list of things that might affect you, prevent you from achieving the stated objectives. Ask yourself, which one of these are the most important? Get the first highest, most important one. Then ask yourself, what should I do with it? Then do it. Then monitor. Does it work? Yes, it works. Then ask yourself, is there anything changed? Yes, so take care of that change. Maybe you need to have visa. Maybe in the past there is no need for the visa, but now you need to have visa if you are going to travel. So ask yourself, is there anything changed? Yes, so work with it. I'm going to leave you for 5 minutes. Work in group of 2. Try to have something in common that you would like to achieve it. Tell me the list. What might affect it? So this is what we are trying to achieve. This is what might affect us. We see that this is the most important one. We are going to do 1, 2, 3, and then tell me like imagination. All right? 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes. Start, please. Work in group of 2. Can I have someone here?
This is our
This is a start. When we start, think about it. So you can know the beginning. This is the first approach.
Listen to your dad.
War.
If you feel certain, you have no, but how you're
visa regulation. صح.
give the burden.
visa regulation. بلكي مثلا خلص في نفس
So is it easy approach? You think that it's an easy approach? Okay, now I'm going to continue, and then you are going to continue later. Okay? So as I said, this is the easiest approach. Yeah, let's refer this one to the famous ISO 31000 framework. So what is ISO 31000 framework? You know that ISO usually like have the ISO and number next to the ISO. So this is families. For example, ISO 9001, so this is the quality family. ISO 31000, this is the risk management family. So for the risk management family of standards, so ISO 31000 standards are the risk management standards. So they have a framework to work through, then you can have a proper risk management. So the first thing they have, you need to establish a context. And we are going to talk about every part in details in the second presentation. Every part, we're going to talk about in details. So the first thing you need to do, you need to establish context. So if I say like, happy vacation, so this is my context. Finance, so this is my, so I'm going to do risk management for the finance, so this is my context. Medical service, so this is my context. HR, so this is my context. First, you need to establish your context. Assessment, you have to go again into 3 steps. Number 1 is you identify all potential risks. Group, brainstorming. Then what you are doing, you do risk analysis. For every risk you identify, you do analysis in terms of how frequent it is, how severe it is. Third, after you have this, you add so why it is important to have a risk management in our healthcare facility? Why it's important? Number 1, because of safety. It reflects that you are considering safety in your healthcare or in your own organization. It reflects quality. So it reflects that you are concerned with safety. It reflects that you are focusing on improving the quality. Again, it's one of the essential requirements for licensure, for accreditation, for insurance. And it reflects to the community that you are working to make sure that the facility is safe. It reflects to the government that you are working to make sure that everything is going according to the law. You are managing this. Okay? So this is why it's important to have a risk management. It's a requirement. If you are going to accreditation, it's a requirement. I'm going to take you out of the healthcare to the oil and gas. I'm going to tell you about the event that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. Because this is like one of the major disasters that affect this is one of the major environmental disasters in the history of the US. And it happens because the people in charge didn't consider risk. So, when you extract oil either from land or sea. When you extract oil from the sea, you either extract it from the shallow water or from the deep water. Now, we have 3 parties in this story. The first party is the British Petroleum Company. So the British Petroleum Company has an agreement with the US government that they are going to extract oil from the Gulf of Mexico. They got the agreement. Now the British Petroleum are going to hire a Swiss company, famous and working in the field of oil extraction. The name of that company is Transocean. Transocean has its own rigs. منصة البترول، منصة استخراج البترول. So now British Petroleum hiring Transocean to extract oil from deep water of the Gulf of Mexico. They reach to the place where there is oil. Now they have well, beer petrol. They need to cover the top of that well. So British Petroleum asked Halliburton to come and do cover that well with cement. Tamam? Now we have 3 parties: British Petroleum, Transocean, and Halliburton. They need to do what? They need to test the pressure or integrity of that surface of the cement, because there is high pressure coming from that well that might go explode and go out. So what you need to do, you need to do what? To test the integrity of that surface of the cement of the well, at the top of the well. But because you are behind, they were behind the schedule, the plan, by about like 43 days, so they are late for extraction of the oil. And for renting that rig, they paid $500,000 per day. So at the moment, and based on the plan, they have losses of approximately like, I would say, 21.5 million US dollar. To do the testing for that surface, it will cost 128,000 US dollar. It's not that much when we talk in the in oil and gas. So they didn't do this. What happened? Disaster happened. I'm going to show you a video. In that video, you're going to have like
Because they lost, they did not do the test, and it's just
because they didn't test it. They didn't test the surface.
and they already are behind the.
They are behind the well, the schedule. So testing take time, testing take money. They would like to start extraction of the oil and gas.
So they didn't do the.
They didn't do it. This is one, in one hand. On the other hand, this rig has been rented for a period of time, for a long time. So they didn't do the proper periodic preventive maintenance for that rig. So there is a lot of things that not function properly. And Transocean requests BP, British Petroleum, to start to do the maintenance that's going to take 1 week. But BP refused to do the maintenance. So taking the decision, we will not do the maintenance now, we need to extract first. Again, this is another risk that didn't be considered. So they have to do the maintenance, they neglected, so they knew the risk, but they didn't manage it. And here, again, they knew the risk, but they didn't manage it. So let's see what will happen. This is a video, this is a trailer of a famous movie called Deepwater Horizon, and this is actually the name of the rig. The rig name is Deepwater Horizon. So the movie called Deepwater Horizon, it was released in 2016 or 17, I don't remember. It's a nice movie, and it plays the true story about what happened. You got to see like the disaster itself. How many people died? Environmental pollution for 5 years. For 5 years. You got to see, and then we're going to discuss it, okay? Let's see the movie. We identify the potentials. Remember what I have said? You might have failure or have a disaster. Catastrophe. This is a catastrophe. I will tell you about the catastrophe. 1. For 5 years, the water of the Gulf of Mexico has been contaminated by oil over 5 years. Imagine you personally have an hotel or restaurant at that coast. You lost your own income for 5 years because of someone, single person, who take a wrong decision. This is the biggest environmental disaster in the history of the US. What happened to the marine life was like a total catastrophe. Second, what happened to the oil and gas industry? So all the insurance company have to increase the value for oil and gas rigs because of that. The insurance company paid a lot. BP paid billions just to overcome this event, to pay for the US, to clean the water, to start initiatives, just to greenwash what happened. Now let me tell you, if you would like to rent, for example, a Lexus car, how much per day? Maybe 300 riyal per day? How much? Let's say whatever. 300. 500? Okay, 500. Okay, 500. What about if you would like to rent a rig for $500,000 per day? So the 500 riyal for a car means a car's value of 30,000, maybe, or 25,000, right?
Yes.
250 in terms of Saudi riyal, right? So What you have done here, you convert this one into millions. So what about the price of the rig? If you are renting the rig for $500,000 per day, how much is the actual price of the rig?
Millions.
They lost it. They lost it, totally, completely lost it. So whenever you're going to take a decision, what you need to do first before taking the decision, you need to identify all potential risks that might happen, that might go wrong to achieve what you are going to do. All right, dears? This is very important. It's very, very important. So, with the Deepwater Horizon, with this catastrophe, I would like to end up the first presentation and just have tea, coffee, and then back. Now let's start with the second presentation. The second presentation, we are going to talk about the ISO 31000 Risk Management Framework. So we are going to know how to establish context of risk, for sure. You are going to identify the component of the risk assessment. You are going to learn how to identify risk and how to apply what we call the ICC approach in risk identification. You are going to learn how to recognize and analyze risk and learn how to treat the risk. So it's a long presentation actually. Let's start. So this is the framework, the ISO 31000 Risk Management Framework. As I said, start by establishing the context. This is the first stage. Second stage, risk assessment. 3 steps. Risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, and the third stage is risk treatment. Let's start with establishing the context, which is the first phase, establishing the context. Let's start with the establishing the context. So, what do you see?
Someone
If you see this photo, what do you see?
Someone tried to kill someone.
Someone trying to kill someone. So which one is trying to kill which one?
The one who's handling
Which one is handling?
the left side.
So the left side is handling what?
Knife or
Handling,
something.
yes. So the left side is handling knife and would like to kill or any that?
Right.
Okay. So whenever you're going to establish a context, you have to have the full photo. Whenever you are going to establish the context, what you need to do just to have the full picture of the event, not the narrow angle of the event. Because it might be like totally different. It might be totally different. So whenever I'm going to establish the context, just remember that a single statistic doesn't tell the whole story. You have to collect data from different perspectives, from different people. Otherwise, you might be mistaken. So, what you need to develop in the context, you need to define the scope for the risk management process. And you need also to set the criteria against which the risk will be assessed. So you need to identify the scope of the risk management. Identify the scope. So how can I identify the scope? Number one, when you define the scope, you have to look into the internal and external issue related to that. And you need to know and understand the needs and expectation of the people involved in that area. And then you need to identify exactly what are the services or what are the products. So for example, when you are going to say, let's say that I would like to do a risk management for finance. Okay, so let's say that I would like to talk about the payment of the salary, right? So what might be the external issue that might affect the salary, might be the internal issue that might affect the salary. External, that might be the law, labor law. This is the minimum amount that you have to pay, this is the maximum. If you are the government, so you have to pay, for example, external factors. So I'm going to talk about it just in a few seconds. And maybe the internal issue is the availability of the money, that you have money to pay the salary. And when you look into the people involved in this process, you find two parties. The people are going to receive the money, the employee, So you need to identify their needs and expectations. And the people are going to pay the money, the owner of the money. So if you're going to think from the point of view of the people who are going to receive the money, you need two things. You need to receive the salary. This is the first thing. The needs is receiving the salary on time, 100%. Expectation, maybe bonus, maybe incentives, right? So you need to identify needs and expectation of the shareholders. What about the people who are going to pay the money? You need to make sure that we have enough money to pay the salary, or are exceeding what we do have to pay the salary. Okay? And then you need to identify exactly the service or the product. Finance, the service is paying salary. So this is the service. So this is exactly the service the finance I'm going to work on. Alright? So whenever you are going to develop risk management, you need to identify the context. In the context, you need to identify the scope. How you can do this one? Start to do internal and external analysis. Start to understand the needs and expectations of the people involved in the process. Start to understand exactly what are the kind of the service or the product that you are working on. Okay? So let's take it step by step. As I said, I'm going to talk about it in details. Let's go with the internal risk. How can I analyze the internal risk? Just SWOT analysis. So you start to identify where I am strong. This is my strengths. You write it down. For example, if you are still working with the finance, so where is your strengths? You have like extra money, you have a reserve, you have income, you have a monthly income. So this is whatever you have. Okay? So start to identify your strengths and also start to identify your weakness. Then start to identify all the external opportunity for you. And then start to identify all the external threat for you. This is what we call it internal analysis, which is SWOT. You are using the SWOT model for analysis. I think you have used this one in many modules. Okay, so start your own analysis. Identify your strengths, identify your weakness. Identify the external opportunity for yourself, and then identify the external threat to you. How can you do the external? Just do the business. So when you are going to analyze everything which is external to you, identify in terms of the political issue, the economical issue, the social issue, the technological issue, the environmental issue, the legal aspect. Okay? So this is how you start to analyze what you are going to do. In that way, you have a clear idea what might go wrong. So let's say that externally maybe political. Let's assume that you have like external investment. So what might go wrong? If I talk about the external issue, a political conflict between both countries might affect your investment, right? Economical. Maybe the change in the price of the oil will affect, like, sector will not pay you on time, other sector maybe have no money at all to pay you, right? Social. The demographic change, the movement of the people from that area to that area, the change in the concept of the people. Imagine, for example, in the past, this is the area where you have a 5-star hotel. Manama, for example, Kudaybiyah. If you go to Kudaybiyah, you find one hotel which, like I said, 4 or 5 stars. Within the Kudaybiyah, but it's an old one. What happened? Demographic change in the area. Now become mostly this area is worker expat. So if you would like to have a reservation, you would like to go there, you would like to have an area in Sif. 100% you are going to the Sif area, which is different. So the demographic change that have happened to this one affecting now the rate of your customer. So social, technological. Imagine in the past you are working and you have to do, let's say, like 6 or 7 steps to complete one task. But because of the new technology, you can do this task maybe in 3 steps Maybe all of the steps can be done online. So this might affect you. Environmental, yes, as I said, environmental, maybe even for the environmental, like the change in the weather, the change storm, volcano. So if you are in Japan, maybe the volcano will be one of your threats. If you are in Indonesia, maybe the hurricane might be your threat, right? So these are external. All of them are kind of external. If you are in the south of Miami, for example, in US, maybe the hurricanes are a threat for you. So these environmental threats. Legal, maybe a new law, a new act, for example, the Environmental Act or the International Labour Law. Now before, you are obliged your staff to work 12 hours, and because of the international law, you only have them to work 8 hours. So legal. So this might be like a threat for you or a risk for you. You need to consider it. You need to consider it, okay? So whenever you are going to, I'm giving you the broad way of how you can do analysis for a risk. So whenever you are going to establish the context, first we identify the scope. Now I would like to start to do analysis for finance. I would like to do analysis for the environment. I would like to do analysis for facility. Okay, what area in the facility? Maybe fighting fire, maybe equipment, maybe safety, maybe security. So I'm going to take this one, which surface? Security. So in the facility management, I'm going to tackle the surface, which is the next one, is which surface or which product. Which surface or which product? This is, as I said, maybe security in the facility, in the scope of facility. Security, safety, disaster, equipment. All of these are items within the facility management in that scope. You got it? Are you following? All right. What about people, the stakeholders? When we talk about the stakeholders, we have many stakeholders. So, stakeholders, people involved in the process that you are going to analyze. Maybe, number one, your staff. Let's take from the top. Maybe the owner of the place. Maybe the top management. Maybe the staff. Now maybe the client. Maybe the supplier. Maybe the competitor. Maybe the community product, good service, affordable. That's their need and expectation and good communication, right? So whenever you are working with a certain group, you need to know the needs and expectation. So, if I take this example, you remember the video I have played before the first presentation, where one of the healthcare staff has been subjected to violence while she was providing the service, right? So if I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to look into like the internal factor, because now I'm going to talk about internal factor, not external factor. So I would like to write the context here. So I'm going to look into the internal risk. So what's the internal risk here? Safety. So who are the stakeholders in this scenario? Staff. And what was the service or product? Service provision, healthcare service provision. This is exactly the service. Okay? It was the healthcare service provision. It wasn't, for example, not a finance service or a purchase service. It was provision of care. So I'm going to look into this one. The internal risk, it was safety. Stakeholder was staff. The service was service provision or client management. So if I'm going to talk about it, so what can you say to identify the context here? I would say safety of the staff during service provision. So I'm going now to, will be my risk, which is I'm going to analyze. What will be my risk here? Safety of staff during service provision. And I'm going to ask myself, what might go wrong? Or what might affect safety of staff during service provision. Right? All what you are going to tell are potential risk. Okay? So now I identified what the context. The context is safety of staff. Now I need to know what? I need to know potential risk. List. Follow? Okay. So next, let's go for this second phase. That's what we call it risk assessment. Risk assessment has 3 steps. Identify risk, identify the risk. Let's go ahead and know how we can identify the risk. To identify the risk, you need a group of the people working in that field. So you need some people who are knowledgeable, experienced, at top management, and frontliners. Again, you need a group of people who can identify the potential risk for a service or for a product in a context. So what you have done, you identify a context, and then you identify product or service, and then you identify the people involved in this process, and then you are going to know what might go wrong. Okay? So who can generate the list of potential risk? Who can generate the list of potential risk? Group of people, knowledge, have the knowledge, have the experience, top management, and frontliners. So in that way, you can have the full view of the process. They will tell you what might go wrong. They will tell you what might go wrong. And then you have to ask yourself the next questions. Or those group of people might ask the following question to generate the potential risk. So this is a list. We have 2 slides. We have 2 slides that we can use to generate list of potential risk. Ask yourself the first question. What could go wrong? When we talk about the trip, we said that bad weather, cancellation of flight. We said strike. What might go wrong? Or ask yourself, how could we fail? So if you would like to achieve a goal or objectives, ask yourself, how could we fail? All the reasons that will lead to our failure are risk. Or ask yourself, where we are vulnerable. So all your vulnerable areas, all your weakness, remember what? W, weakness. Where are we vulnerable? Where are we weak? So all your weak area is our risk. Or you can ask yourself, how could something disturb our operation? How could something disturb our operation? All of these are external. So again, this is the pistol. Okay? How could something disturb our operations? So enlist all of the potential external pistol analysis that might affect your operation. Or you can ask yourself, on what we do mostly rely? The things that you mostly rely on, the thing that you cannot get rid of, this is highly risky, you need to take care of. Or again, you might ask yourself, on what we do spend money most? The area where you put most of your money in it, this is a highly risky area, that's why you are investing in this. So you need to take care of this. This area will not fail. Or you might ask yourself, what are the activities that are most complex and need like more judgment? Because the area that need more judgment, time to think about it, and more complex are the most risky area. That's why you wait until you take the decision. That's why you ask for external advice, because you cannot do it alone. This is risky. Again, so you have a list of questions that you can ask yourself to generate the list of potential risk. Ask yourself, what might go wrong? How could we fail? Where we are vulnerable? Where we are weak? How could something disturb our operation? Ask yourself, which are the most important information that we mostly rely on? Ask yourself. On what we do spend money a lot? Ask yourself. What decisions require more judgment? Trios. Ask yourself, what activity are the most complex? These are the highly risky area. So the activity that you are doing so easily, this is not risky. But the activity that you do, like, for example, doing surgical operation, it's complex. That's why it's highly risky. Imagine for them the other way around, for the other way. Paying tips. This is not risky, so you do it like this. Doing the operation is totally different. So in that way, now we know how to do the first step in the risk assessment. Identify risk. So how you can identify risk? By asking questions. What are the questions? We just finished the list now. Okay? Second. When we identify the risk, we need to write that risk. We need to write that risk in a way, in a scientific way. We need to write that risk in a scientific way. So we have an approach. We call this approach the ICC approach. This is an easy approach to write down the risk. Okay? So what is ICC approach? You write down the impact or the potential impact of that risk. You write down the potential impact of that risk. Then you write down why it happens. You describe the causal factor for that risk. And then you write the context, like where it happens, like what was the nature of that area. Now take the example to be easy. So in that photo, what happened here? Patient fall in the treatment area, right? Now I'm going to identify that this might happen. Now imagine now it didn't happen. Imagine it didn't happen. So if I would like to have this as a potential risk, and I would like to write the risk in ICC approach, impact, causal factor, context, I would say injury to staff or either surface user. Impact is injury. He fell down, right? So what might go wrong for him? Injury. So injury either to patient or staff, okay? Injury to staff or surface user. What might be the cause? Due to improper maintenance of the floor, and where is the context? In the treatment room, in the nursing room, in the management area. Now you have given me a risk. So what might go wrong? What might go wrong is injury to someone due to a reason in an area. Okay? Now let's have another example. Let's have another example. We have a patient who comes to the accident emergency. We are expecting to resuscitate that patient, and the patient might be like in good health again. So what might go wrong? Failure of resuscitation of the patient due to untrained staff in the accident emergency room. This is risk. So we have the risk that something might go wrong, which is patient die. Why? Due to untrained staff who cannot resuscitate that patient. Context in the management area, which is here is accident emergency room. Go back to the finance. Failure to build the salary due to shortage of money in the XYZ company. Risk? Yes. Risk? Yes. So I will leave you now to generate 5 risks using the ICC approach. Think of something negative due to a reason in a context. Okay? Generate 5. Let's start to generate individually. Start to generate 5 potential risks in the ICC approach. Tell me something negative due to a reason in a context. Uncontrolled bleeding in the surgery room or in the operating room due to failure of diathermy. First? Yes.
Healthcare or
In whatsoever. Just give me 5 risks written by in terms of ICC approach. In the accident emergency room. So in that way we can analyze it, why it happened. This is easy. Yes, please.
Needle stick injury.
Okay, so the impact is needle
Stick injury.
stick injury due to
Untrained staff.
untrained staff,
Improper handling.
improper handling.
Techniques or whatever.
So untrained staff on proper handling of sharps.
Yep.
Yeah, where context.
Improper disposal.
Context. Still now we have, give me the context. On proper disposal, so the context on proper disposal of sharps. Okay, so needle stick injury due to untrained staff. Context on proper sharp disposal. Proper sharp disposal.
Right.
So the context here is proper sharp disposal. Yes, dear.
bad patient service.
Okay, so I have another one. So the impact is bad. Okay,
Patient
impact is bad service or unsatisfied client.
care. Unsatisfied client.
Yes, so the impact is unsatisfied because the cause is bad service.
Yes.
So unsatisfied client
Right.
due to
Due to shortage of staff,
shortage of staff.
mismanagement in increasing workload.
No. Now the impact is unsatisfied client due to you wrote shortage of staff. Where
In surgical work.
in surgical work. Okay. So in that way, at least you'd like to contribute. Okay. Yes.
Post-open section.
Okay. Tell me. So I have post-op infection. This is the impact
Yeah.
due to
Due to maybe low awareness of the staff.
low awareness on what?
Uh,
On infection prevention control.
infection
So due to low awareness of staff on infection prevention control, where context in OR. So this is risk. Post-operative infection is a risk. Why? Because where? In that area. So in that way, it will be so easy for us to do what? To write risk. Now we wrote the risk. Then we can generate a list of the risk in that way. So what we have done till now, we identified context. And then in the context, we identify surface or product. Within the surface of the product, we identify the need and expectation of the people involved in that product or surface. Then we start to generate the list of the risk. Are you following till now? Now we have generated a list of the risk. So just to make it again for you, what we have done, we identified context. Let's say finance, healthcare provision, HR, whatsoever. And then we identify product or service. Okay? Then we identify the people involved to know the needs and expectation. Now, all of this is the context. Then we start to generate list of the potential risk using impact, cause, context, ICC approach. Now we have many risks. What we need to do after that, we need to do analysis. I'm going to do analysis in terms of severity and frequency, like how frequently this risk might happen, and when it happens, how severe it will be. Okay? Let's go for the analysis. When we do analysis for the risk, we do analysis from different perspectives. We would like to know the causes, we would like to know the potential probability of that risk when it happens, like how frequent it happens. We would like to know the harm or the effect of that. Is there any alternative to use? This way we actually do the analysis of the risk. And we have many methods that we can use to analyze a risk. For example, we have failure mode and effect analysis, and we're going to take this one in details later by the end of the day, inshallah. And this is as a prospective, like in the future, a prospective analysis, or we can use root cause analysis, fishbone root cause analysis, and this is to analyze a risk that already happened. So this is retrospective analysis. Or we might use what's known as a bow-tie analysis. So here I'm having one single method where I'm using prospective and retrospective together in one single method. We call this one bow-tie analysis. Or we might also go and have some statistics and having the training, because again the training can tell me that, give me analysis. So the things increase or decrease. Or we can have like a full system analysis. Actually, I'm going to talk about failure mode and effect analysis, fishbone and bow-tie today. But before I go and do like how frequent the event happening and the severity of that event, I need to identify, is there any existing control measures? Because actually we can say that this event is happening so frequently, this event when it happens, it might lead into a catastrophe. Yes, we know that this event, for example, fire, when the fire happens, can lead into catastrophe. But at the moment when we do the analysis, do we have something in place to minimize that effect? So this is what we call it existing control measures. And in the bow-tie, we are going to call it barriers. Okay? So before we go and do the analysis, we need to understand and recognize all the existing control measures. So what are the forms of control measures? How the control measures look like? Control measures may be a written document. For example, policy, process, guidelines, manuals. I'll tell you how. So imagine you say that, let's say that the impact is uncontrolled chronic disease due to absence of knowledge, context of the medical staff, right? So that's why I have a guideline. When I develop the guidelines, this will be a reference for all the staff to be trained on. So they have one single reference. All the staff can go through the guidelines. In that way, I will have a proper management. So having the guideline in itself is a kind of control measures or a barrier against the improper management. So maybe policy and process will help you. For example, the procedure manual. Imagine that you are in the diagnostic department, the radiology department, and one of the risks is that you take improper imaging of patient, correct? So improper imaging of patient due to untrained staff in the radiology department, this is risk. Improper imaging, or wrong imaging, or repetition of imaging. So how can I overcome this one? I might have a control measures. If I have manual, like how to take the sinus, how to take the sum, how to take so and so, how to take these views. So whenever we have a procedure manual, so the staff can refer to the procedure manual to do the right thing. So having this as an existing control measures will minimize that risk. So documents in terms of policy, process, procedure, manual, guidelines, audit, all of these is a kind of the first control measures. Second control measures might be in terms of engineering control. Like for example, the automatic, like in some machine, if you have a new car and now the temperature is going up, what will happen to the car? It will stop automatically, right? So this is the kind of control measures. Because if you're going to use the same car with the high temperature, something might go wrong. So that they have automated the automation, the kind of automation stop once there is a problem. Okay? So you might have this kind of engineering control, for example, like the fire detector. So because we have the fire detector, so we can easily detect fire before it becomes like a major event. So this is the kind of control measures. Engineering. Okay, I have the policies and process. So what I need to do, so I have it, but no one is trained on. Like your example here, when you said that needle break due to untrained staff would have to dispose sharps. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to do training. Training to the staff on what we have, training on the staff on how to use, for example, infusion pump. Imagine untrained people using infusion pump. What might go wrong? Maybe high dose, maybe low dose, maybe wrong medicine, maybe they destroy the machine. So training of the staff on how to do, how to use, this is a kind of control measure. What else? Emergency preparedness. So imagine you already have, for example, you already have the fire detector, you already have the extinguishers, you already have the water sprinklers, you already have everything, but without having one single or more than fire drill. So whenever the fire happens, we will know what to do. So what we need to have training on emergency situations. Okay? For example, you have given people lots and lots of training on resuscitation, but when the event happened, no one knows how to do it. So what we need to do is to do training. And finally, the periodic preventive maintenance. Remember the deep water horizon. So the periodic preventive maintenance of your machine will help you be a kind of control against the event from happening, against the risk to happen, to materialize, we call it sometimes. So this is a kind of, all of these are a kind of control measures. And if you saw the photo I'm giving to you here, it's like, you know this person? Do you know this person?
Yes, Captain America.
Yeah, this is Captain America. So what we need to do actually is to have the shield of Captain America against our threats. And our threats are risk. We need to develop our Captain America shield to overcome, to withstand the threats when it materializes, when it happens. We call it when the risk materializes, means when the risk happens. Alright? So remember, what you need to do in the analysis, do I have Captain America shield? Do I have one of the existing control measures? Or if I don't have, so that's what I need to develop, to manage. So now, let's go for the analysis. To go for the analysis, especially with the ISO do analysis from 2 points, from the frequency and from the impact. Impact means severity. So after we do the analysis, we're going to have a table like this. A table classified as green, yellow, and red. Or table that's classified as low risk, medium risk, high risk. Okay? So how can I reach to that table? This table is a part of that likelihood or the frequency, impact or consequences. Let's start by talking about the likelihood. How can I put numbers to represent the frequency of an event? Like how can I give 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 to represent frequency of the event? They given us the clue. The ISO gave us the clue. So they said, if you would like to start to rate the frequency of an event, especially for the risk, this is how you can rate it from 1 to 5. From 1 to 5. If the risk is happening every 5 years and more, here you are going to give it the lowest rate, which is 1. Which is 1. So for any risk that happens every 5 years and more, This is where you're going this one at the very low frequently happening risk. Give it 1. If the risk is happening between 5 years and 2 years, where you are going to give this, the rating of frequency will be 2. So if the risk is happening between 2 years and 5 years, you give the frequency value of 2. If the risk is happening between 1 and 2 years, here you give it the frequency of 3. If the risk is happening between, every year, but less than 6 times, here you give it the frequency of, if the risk is happening more than 6 times per year, here you give it the frequency of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frequency, whereas 1 representing 5 years and more, 2 representing 2 to 5 years, 3 representing 1 to 2 years, 4 representing less than 6 times, 5 representing more than 6 times per year. Okay? So if the risk is happening every 3 years, how much are you going to give it in the frequency? Every 3 years. 2. If the risk is happening every 15 months. 3. If the risk is happening every 2 months.
4.
If the risk is happening every week.
5.
That's. So here you are going to have, in terms of frequency or likelihood, you are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Easy? Easy, right? Okay. Now let's go to how we can have number for the severity from 1 to 5. Whereas 1 is nothing happening in terms of impact, whereas 5 is loss of life or loss of business. Remember, 1 is nothing happening. Very negligible effect is happening. 5, either loss of life, permanent loss or damage, or maybe even loss of business. So that's why when we talk about the severity or the impact, we have many dimensions. So you might measure it from the dimension of injury to surface user, or injury to staff, or injury to the body. You might measure the risk in terms of severity from the experience of your client. Or you might measure it from the degree you are complying with regulations and standards. Or you might measure it from the way you achieve your own task. You might measure it financially. You might measure it environmentally. You might measure publicly your image or your reputation. So you have many dimensions when you talk about the severity. So imagine, for example, this is a kind of healthcare facility with many failure of the surgical operation. So if I have one single healthcare facility with very frequently happening failure of surgical operation, what will happen? What about the reputation? Good reputation or bad reputation? Bad reputation. So if you are going to talk about the government, what the government might do? Stop the operation of that healthcare hospital. So loss of business. What might happen financially? Maybe loss of compensation. So loss of money. So what happened about the patient experience? Very negative, very poor satisfaction. So whenever we are going to talk about the severity, we have many dimensions. So I'm going to take fire as an example to measure the severity. So I'm going to tackle, so this is a score from 1 to 5. This is the word representing the score. So 1 is negligible, 2 is minor, 3 is moderate, 4 major, 5 extreme. Here I'm going to put the financial impact. Here I'm going to put the environmental. Here I'm going to the objectivity, like continuity of work. Okay, continuity of business. All right. This is an example. Only example. So let's say that we have fire, and imagine in this hotel, for example, in this hotel. Okay. Let's assume that we have a kind of fire. This fire, like it's only like ignition. Like there is a kind of wire ignition. So what's the consequence will be like some smell, some smoke smell. Okay? So let's say that it was in this corner, for example. So what will happen? So this is we're going to give it 1. It's only minimal. It's negligible. Financial. The cost to repair this one will be like less than 1,000 currency whatsoever. And it will be only a noise release, like the smell. We smell smoke. But still, the whole facility can continue to operate. That's why we give it the value of 1. Let's imagine the fire is within this room. It's not only wire ignition, it's this room. So we have some damage of the table and the carpet. So the financial value will be between 1 to 10,000. In the financial, I'm going to add 0 every time. When I go from 1 to 10, 0. From 1 to 2, 0. And then another 0, another 0, another 0. So the financial value between 1,000, which is 30, to 10,000, which is like 40. Here will be like on-site release and contained, so we'll have like the facility management will come directly to this room and control the fire. But what happened to this room, exactly this room? Minor reduction of the schedule, so tomorrow and after tomorrow, for maybe for 1 week, there will be delay of the schedule of the operation of renting that room. But still, the whole hotel is going to continue operation. What about 3? Let's say that the fire extends from that room to the corridor to this floor. So in that way, this is moderate and the financial value up to 100,000, let's say Bahraini dinar. It's one single floor. So actually, the release would be maybe contained by the facility management staff. And now we're going to have major reduction in the schedule and the operation of the hotel till they fix this full floor. So no provision of education for months, for example. But still, the top floors are working, the ground floor are working, right? Now let's go for the measure. Here, the financial value will cost between 100,000 to 1 million. We add an extra 0. Here, whereas we cannot control the fire, so the fire extends to more than one single floor. So we need the help from the external, like civil defense. What will happen? There will be significant project delay. We're going to stop operation till we fix, repaint, purchase, fix, do everything. So the whole facility has to stop operation till we fix this. But still, there is building. Now let's go for the extreme. Fire, eat the whole hotel, take it all. So we need to demolish the building. So this is where like completely we lost the project. Okay, you tell us that for the frequency from 1 to 5, for the severity from 1 to 5. So which 5? If the fire is going to be from 1 to 5, which number we need to use? So whenever there is an event that's happening up to 5, so severity is 5. I will not wait because I'm doing management, risk management. So I will not wait until the risk becomes 5. I will directly consider this one as severity 5. I'm going to write 5 in the severity. Okay? So let's say that, for example, how frequently is firing occur? Does it occur every day?
No.
More than 6 times per year in that hotel? No. Every six months?
No.
No. Every 1 to 2 years? No. Every 2 to 3 years?
Maybe one time.
Maybe one time. Every 5 years and more? Maybe yes. So we're going to have in the frequency 1 or 2, but the severity is going to be 5. So this is how we're going to do. Okay? I'm going to do, for example, surgical operation. Brain operation. Brain surgery. So severity from 1 to 5, maybe something go wrong. From 1 to 5. How much am I going to give it? 5. How about 5? So this is important. Whenever we expect that the severity might go to 5, we give it, and the severity we give it 5. So this is the second step. Now I know how to do what? Now I know how to do the analysis. I know how to write the likelihood. I know how to write the severity. Now, when I do the third step in the second phase, which is This is the second phase, risk assessment. I already finished with identifying the risk, the brainstorming, the 10 questions I can ask. I already finished with the analysis, the likelihood and severity. Now I'm going to do the evaluation of the risk. How I can do evaluation of the risk? By multiplying severity times frequency. By multiplying severity times frequency. When I do multiply times frequency times severity, I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this table. So now I'm going to multiply 1 from 1 to 5. Again from 1 to 5. So I need some people who are awake with me at the moment. I need to think I'm going to have 1, value of 1. What's value of 1 representing? Yes. Frequency, yes. It's like very low happening, very rarely happening event. And when it happens, it has a minor effect, right? It's 1 times 1 equal 1. I'm going to have 2. Yes, I'm going to have 2. So there is a risk that when it happens, maybe it happens between 5 to 2 years. And when it happens, it have maybe a minor effect. Okay, maybe the financial is than 1,000. Or I might have an event that happens every 5 years and more. But when it happens, let's say that the financial value is between 1,000 to 10,000, for example. So that's why we have 2 on both sides. We have risk with the value of 3. Yes? Okay, and then value of 4. And then can have some people talking in a loud voice. 4, and then value of 5. And then value of 6. Do I have 6?
Yes.
No 6?
There is 6.
Times 2 times 3.
3. 2 times 3.
So 6. Do I have 7?
No.
No 7? What about 8?
8. Yes.
What about 9?
Yes.
And then
12.
10. What about 11?
No.
What about 12?
Yes.
13?
No. Yes.
Yes, 3 times.
No.
13.
15.
What about 14?
No.
So, after 12, which value?
15.
15. And then?
16.
Yes, 16. After 16, what about 17?
No. 20.
18?
20.
19?
20.
18? Do I have 18?
No.
No 18. So 20.
Then 25.
What about 21?
No.
22? 23? 24? Yes, 25. So this is the value I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is from 1 to 5 times 1. I have 6, 2 times 3. I have 8, 2 times 4. I have 10, 2 times 5.
9.
I have 9. Exactly, I have 9. And then
12.
then I have 12, then I have 15. After 15, I have 16.
20.
I have 16, 20, and then 25. Okay. Look at this. And look at this. So this is, look at this. The green one. And look at this. Imagine this is yellow from 9. And then look at this. So for the event that happened up to 8, we give it the value of low risk. We give it the value of low risk. And between 9 to 15, this is medium risk. And anything that happened as 16 to 25, this is what we call it high risk. Okay? When we do work with the ISO 31000 risk management framework, we have 3 phases. Phase 1 is establish the context. Phase 2 is risk assessment. Now, we are going to work on the phase 3, treat the risk or risk management. Here is the process, here is the point where we start to do the risk management. Here is the process where we start to identify the risk and analyze the risk. So up to here is risk analysis. From here down will be the risk management. So whenever we're going to do the managing the risk, we need to do a lot of things. We might work and go to accept the risk. Yeah, true. We can accept the risk. I'm going to tell you how and when and why. Or we can reduce the risk, or we can avoid the risk, or we can transfer the risk. We have many options when we're going to treat the risk. So, as I said, whenever we do the analysis of the risk, we do the analysis to know which kind of risk require management, and among those who require management, which one of them is the high priority, to start with the high priority first. So, whenever I have risk, as I said earlier, I can accept the risk, or I can treat the risk. I can accept the risk as a phase, I can treat the risk as another alternative. So when I treat the risk, I either avoid the risk from the beginning, I'm going to tell you what we'll do, or I can transfer the risk, like give it to someone else, or I even can control the risk, and this is the hard work. So when should I accept the risk? When should I accept the risk? It means that I, at the moment, know that there is risk, and I'm going to continue my operation knowing there is risk, and I will do nothing with it. Because maybe it's an external risk. Look, let's assume that in Bahrain, for example, in the past, and even I think this is again in Saudi Arabia, in the past you can renew your license as a healthcare professional on an annual basis just by paying the renewal fees. That's it. So now, if you are going to renew your license, you need to complete continuous and CME hours, continuous medical education, continuous professional development hours, credit hours. So this is a new regulation. So this means that I'm going to stop hiring people, or I'm going to stop working because I cannot do this. No, I'm going to accept the risk. I'm going to continue working, I'm going to continue renewal, and I'm going to get that, comply with this regulation. So I'm accepting the risk. Okay? So sometimes there is a way where the risk is external and you have nothing in it. You cannot do any influence. Political issue that might happen. So what should I do? What can I do? I'm going to accept the risk. So I'm going to stop? No, I can continue and accept the risk. So sometimes maybe you have a kind of the risk that it's at the very lower level, the risk that will take 1 or take 2. So this is risk that's rarely happening, and when it happens, the impact is very minimal. So I'm going to do what? I'm going to accept that risk. I'm going to continue working and accepting the risk. Sometimes the risk, the money I'm going to spend to have a management plan for that risk, exceeding the impact of that risk. So in that way I'm going to accept the risk, rather than spend too much money for the management because the impact is minimal. So I'm going to accept that risk. Sometimes the outweight of taking the risk with the potential of gaining exceeding the impact if the risk is happening. مغامرة يعني. You're going to take an advantage, you're going to take a risk, and I'm going to take the risk. So maybe the output of taking the risk, the financial value, the gain of taking the risk is so positive, exceeding if the risk is materialized. For example, let me tell you, so that I'm going to quit from my whatsoever position, I'm going to open my own company. This is a risk, But maybe the gaining from opening your own company will exceed the income you are going to get. It's more than the income you used to get from the current position in that company. So in that way, you are going to accept the risk. In that way, you are going to accept the risk. So when you accept the risk, when the effect is minimal, that's fine. I'm going to accept the risk. I'm going to accept the risk when the value for the management of the risk exceeding the impact of that risk. So there is no need to do like a proper management. I'm going to accept it. So when it happens, I can cover it. Or when the gain from taking the risk is more than if the risk is materialized. You might have a lot of gain. As I said, like you're going to quit your current position and you're going to, for example, you're going to open a new company. The gain from that company is exceeding. Okay? So where, or maybe the risk is totally external beyond your limitation. So it's something that which is external at a higher level and you have nothing to do with it. In that way, you're going to new rules or new regulation. What can you do? You stop working as a doctor? You stop operating as a hospital? No, you are going to continue operating. For example, NEHRA or accreditation, national accreditation, SIBACA accreditation or NHR accreditation. It's a new rule. You will not be relicensing without taking the accreditation. This means that I'm going to stop working. No. I'm going to accept the risk. I'm going to go enroll into the national accreditation to renew my license. So I'm going to accept the risk. Okay? So this is the phase where you are going to do what? Accept the risk. For example, again, your plan is to go to Europe during Christmas vacation. What about if snow, like when the snow whatsoever happen? I'm going to accept the risk. I'm going to go. I would like to go, so I'm going. So we are accepting the risk. What, for example, if people in Europe do strike? As I said earlier, Lufthansa people, British Airways people, the French Railway, the common people that you usually do. Yes, it's possible, but I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to travel. Okay? So this is the phase where you do accept risk. Otherwise, you're going to treat risk. Otherwise, you're going to do what? Treat the risk. So what are the levels of treating the risk? Number one, I can avoid the risk. Avoid risk. Show me how you can avoid risk. To avoid risk, you have many ways of avoiding the risk. From the beginning, not proceeding. مش لاعب يعني. Not proceeding. So imagine you are a surgeon and you have a kind of high risky patient. If you do the operation, maybe something major happen. Say that you are at high risk. I prefer not to proceed with the operation. So not to proceed from the beginning. Let's cancel the operation. In that way, what you have done, you avoided the risk. You did what? You avoided the risk. Second option, you use an alternative and more acceptable way. Use alternative and more acceptable way. Like, for example, in the past, we have the risk of needle break from sharp instruments, from needle, right? You have injury, needle break from the needles or from sharps, right? So what we have done, we developed the policy of no recap. And we are going to use this needle and throw it in the yellow sharp containers. It's safe. So it's not I'm going to use the needles at all, no. I still using the needle, but I use an alternative, more acceptable way. Rather than capping, no, I'm going to use that needle, use it, and then take it and put it in the alternative, more acceptable way. Second. Third, or maybe you use an alternative, again, alternative but less risky. This one was more acceptable, this one less risky. For example, dentist. Dentists use the same needle many times in the same setting. So they need to recap it. No, they do scoping technique. scoping technique where it's like one single handed. So this is the cap of the needle and this is the needle. So what they are doing, they do scoping. So they keep one hand away, use this hand, and they do the scoping, put the cap. Once it's up, now they close the needle. So what they have done to minimize the risk of needle break, they do scoping technique. So whenever there is a risk, number one, accept. Number two, treat. What you can do in the treat? Number one, avoid. Either not to proceed from the beginning, not to proceed. Second, alternative, more acceptable. Remember the sharp object, how we do it now with the earpods. Or alternative, less risky. Remember the scoping technique. Okay?
But alternative, more acceptable, like throwing it in the sharp container, still there is a risk as well.
Yeah, but less, more acceptable than before.
But it's like reducing the risk.
Yes, because now we are managing the risk. You are managing the risk. But when we do this, how many incidents you have till now?
It's less.
Or zero. Or zero, because you don't touch the needle at all. You just throw
I
it.
mean, is there a difference between avoiding risk and reducing it?
Yeah. This is in the avoiding. In the avoiding, we have three options. Not to proceed. Remember the surgery, brain surgery. Second option, alternative, more acceptable. So you do the operation, like you're still giving the injection, but rather than recapping, you do what? You dispose it. Alternative, less risky, so you're still using the recapping, but not by two hands, by one single hand, which is the scoping. So now you do the recapping, but by the scope technique, one single hand, not two single hand. All right? Okay. So this is the first option in the treatment, which is avoid. Second is transfer. When I talk about the transfer, mean that you know there is something you are doing and it's risky. There is a process and it's risky. Example, kitchen in the healthcare facility, kitchen in hospital. What I can do, I can transfer it, outsource it. So I purchase meal from outside. So in that way, I don't have kitchen, I don't have staff working in the kitchen, I don't have the hassle of the frequent visit from the authority. I don't have to take care of the waste. I don't have to purchase materials. What I have done, I outsource the rest. So I give it to someone else, I transfer the rest to someone else, and I'm going to outsource it. Laundry in hospital, the same. What you can do, you can outsource it. Having pharmaceutical patch, rather than can you personally establish this, you can outsource the pharmacy within the facility. That's one. And number two, so number one is outsourcing. The transfer. Number two in the transfer is insurance. You contract an insurance company. For example, you have the risk of medical mistakes. So you insure yourself and your staff, you insure the facility and the staff against medical mistakes. So whenever the medical mistakes happen, so the insurance company will compensate the first victim, which is the patient family, rather than the company or the hospital paying for itself and paying for the staff. So insurance is a second thing that you can do in the transferring the risk. So in the management of risk, in the transfer one, you can do two things. One is to outsource the risky service. Second is to insure the risky service. Outsource risky service or insure risky service. Easy? So easy. Okay. Number three, here is the hassle. Control the risk. Now I'm going to work 100%. This is where I'm going to work. This is where I'm going to make effort. So when I do start to do the control, this is the most commonly measurement I'm using because I cannot outsource everything. Imagine if I'm going to outsource everything. I'm not existing now. And remember, by the way, when you do outsource service, don't outsource your competitive advantage. Otherwise, you are going to lose your competitive advantage.
Oh, definitely.
Your strengths, the thing that discriminates you among the others. Let's say that you have a fantastic surgeons, so don't outsource surgery because this is your competitive advantage. This will make you remarkable in the business. Okay? So when you do like controlling the risk, you have to use the most effective way. So how can you control risk? To control the risk, you need to do what? You need to start to have the barriers, as I said. You need to have the control measures, as I said. You need to develop your policy, process, manuals. You need to start to do engineering, re-engineering of the current process. So whenever you know that there is a risky process, you can do what? You can re-engineer the process, change the process. Or you can start to have documents. That will be like having consistency at work. What can make a consistency at work? Guidelines can make consistency at work. Policy process can make consistency at work. Manuals can make consistency at work. Having guidelines, as I said earlier, or as I said, if you have a process and this is a risky process, you can re-engineer the process, modify the process. And you can modify that from the risky to less risky one. Or also, what you can do, you can start to train your staff that this is the risky process. So when you do, you have to follow the guidelines and you have to follow the new process. Also, you can do what? You can start to engage the staff in mitigating the risk. So, for example, you can start to have fire drill. Having a fire drill exercise is a kind of mitigation. What can we do when the fire happens? So you know that risk is fire. The risk here is fire. So you mitigate. You imagine that fire is happening. What should we do? You start to mitigate. This can be done for fire or for emergency. Plus, you start to work on your facility. Maintain your own facility. How can you maintain your own facility? By having a periodic preventive program for that facility. If you start to implement this, you can start to control your own risk. Okay? Any questions on that? Any question? So in that way, we worked with ISO 31000 framework for risk management. So we identify how to formulate risk, how to develop context, how to develop area within that context, or service or product within that context, how to identify people involved in this context, and then how to generate a list of risk, and then after we generate a list of risk, you identify within the analysis. The analysis in terms of how frequently it happened, what is the severity when it happened, and then we start to have what we call it, the evaluation of the risk. So we times severity times the frequency with number. We take the highest one that take from 16 to 20, this is a high risk. And then we have from 1 to 8, this is the low risk, and in between is the moderate risk. When we start to treat the risk, we start with the high risk first. Once we finish, then we go for the moderate risk second. And I think the mild risk can be acceptable. Yes, Steve?
Can we ask for taking an example from the beginning till...
We can, yes, we can do this one. Just let me continue, yes. Let me continue with the methods, because with the methods we can to generate analysis for the risk, for the methods. To develop healthcare risk registrar. How to develop healthcare risk registrar. So the main idea of that presentation now, we can clarify what is risk registrar, number one. Number two, what are the importance of having a risk registrar? Number three, how to write down a risk registrar. And number four, you're going to practice now at the moment, write down risk registrar. So what is risk registrar? If you go back to the NHRA accreditation, SPAC accreditation, GCI accreditation, accreditation Canada accreditation, AXA accreditation. Risk registrar is a requirement. So I'm telling about a requirement in the accreditation. One of the most important requirements in the accreditation, especially in terms of safety. Second, it's requirement for licensure, re-licensure. You need to know where is your risk. You need to develop your own risk. So actually, risk registrar per se, it's a document. It's a document that you need to develop. It's a kind of the document that you need to develop and it includes all the potential hazard that you have in your healthcare facility. Again, it's a document that you develop and include all the potential hazard that you have in your healthcare facility. So you need to have chapters within that document. You need to develop chapters within that document. So let's say that financial risk, and then HR risk, operational risk, facility management risk. So within the same document, you get to have a subfolder. Within the same document, you have to have section in that document. So for example, financial risk, facility risk, operational risk, staff risk, HR risk, and so on and so forth. Let's say that you are going to take one single section. This is the section. Imagine this is the section, one of the section, okay? So, in the first page, this is the first risk, and this is everything about first risk. This is the second risk. This is the third risk. This is the fourth risk, and so on. So in that way, in your document, you're going to have sections within the same document. Every section has many risks within that section, within that department. Okay? So this is basically the risk registrar. The main idea of having a risk registrar is, number one, the facility can identify its own, we call it inherent risk, or the facility can identify its potential risk that might affect its success. So you can have the risk that affect your safety. You can know the risk that affect your operation. You can know the risk that affect your financial management. You can have the risks that affect the management risk. You can identify many risks within one single section. Once you know this, now you know the list of the risks within each category. Again, the risk registrar will tell you what will be the category of that risk. Is it an old risk or is it a new risk? And again, the risk registrar will tell you what are the high priority risks, what are the moderate priority risks, what are the lower priority risks. The risk registrar will let you develop a plan to manage these risks. The risk registrar will tell you, do you really have, you remember Mr. Captain America shield? So do you have an existing control measures for that risk at the moment, or you need to develop a new control measures to avoid that risk? Or you might, in one section, in one surface, you have the risk, you have only 2 control measures. And that's why that risk is taking 20. But if you are going to develop some extra barrier, some extra control measures, this might take this risk to maybe 8. So convert this one from high risk to low risk. So this is the most important value of having or developing a risk registrar. You know the different type of risk that you have. You know whether they are new or old. You know whether they are high, moderate, or severe. You know in which category you have it. You know the existing control measure for every risk. And then you know what you can do and what will happen if you do a new barrier or new control measures. Okay? So this is the value of developing a risk registrar. When you develop your own risk registrar, you have to have all of these. Wow, wow. How can I develop all of these? It's too much. 15, 16 items I can have in one single page. Yes. Actually, I'm going to give you the risk registrar in this form. Easy. So this is actually what I want you to develop. This is how you are going to develop your own risk registrar. A simple template. Simple template. When you develop this simple template, you're going to have a risk registrar. This template for one risk only. So in every section, you're going to have from this many. Okay? So what are these titles and what does it denote? So number one, the first thing is section. Section. So section, this one, is a department. It's a section within the figure, so it will be finance. So all of the following is a risk within the finance. Maybe it's nursing. Maybe it's operational. Maybe it's HR. Maybe it's infection control. So this is the section. This risk, this page representing a risk within this department. So the first item you are going to cover is what? In the section, the department or the location of the risk. The second head of that template, we call it the category. So you have to tell me what kind of risk is this one? Is it operational? Is it building? Is it equipment? Is it environment? Is it facility? Is it human? Is it whatsoever? So you have to tell me what kind of category is that. Third, you're going to develop a unique ID for that risk. For example, if we are going to take, let's say that the group of the people who are going to develop the risk registrar, they have to come up with how they are going to develop the unique risk ID. Example, and only example, this is example. They might take, for example, the first 3 letters from the section and the first 3 letters from the category, and then they give it digit out of 3 digits. Okay? For example, so it might be infection control. So infection prevention control, hand wash 002. Example, this is only example.
It's type,
Okay.
right?
Sorry?
Category is a type of the...
So we might take 3 from the section. This is an example. I said this is an example, only example. So the group of the people who are going to develop risk ID, you might take two letters from whatsoever. It depends on you, okay? But this is an example. And I'm going to give you some of the examples here, how you can write risk ID, a unique risk ID. So we have the section, we have the category, we have the risk ID. Okay till now? Now we need to have the title or the name of the risk. Whenever you are going to write the title or the name of the risk, give a simple, recognizable, easy to remember name. You can start with 2 names. So 2 words, 3, maximum 4. Okay? So for example, needle break is a name, it's a good name. Needle break, so 2 words. Post-operative infection. So this is 3 names. It's a good name. Good name for the risk. Surgical site infection. It's a good name for the risk. Staff absenteeism. No show. Missed appointment. Okay, good name for the risk. So whenever you are going to develop a risk name, just try to have it 2 words, 3 words, 4 maximum. Then you are going to have who will be the owner of that risk? Who will be responsible to identify and manage that risk? Who will be responsible to identify and manage that risk? This should be the head of department. So if it's a nursing, head of nursing, he or she can delegate this responsibility to someone else, but still he or she will be accountable for identifying and managing that risk. Status. You're going to tell me this is like a new risk or an old risk. This is a high priority risk, moderate priority risk, or low priority risk. Imagine if you have in the risk registrar all high priority. What do you think? Imagine if you have in the risk registrar all and low priority. What do you think?
Old and low.
All risk and high priority. What do you think? You are in danger. You are in danger because you know that this is a high risk and you didn't solve it, you didn't manage it. See, risk registrar will tell you a lot. Risk registrar will tell you a lot. So, owner and status, new or old, high, medium or low risk. Then, description of the risk. You remember the impact, cause, context. This is how we are going to write the risk. And then you are going to tell me the likelihood of that risk from the analysis. You are going to tell me the severity. And at that moment, at that point of time, we are going to write down what we call risk index. Risk index at that point of time, which is the evaluation of the risk, at that point of time, at the date of analyzing, writing down that risk. This is what we call it risk index. Then you are going to tell me what the preventive measure that you have, and what are the mitigation measures that you have, and what will be the contingency action that you have. I'm going to tell you this later. Okay? And this is at the moment. So what if you change, if you add some control measures? What do you expect will be the residual risk? So initially, at that time, this is the value for the current risk index. But if I add this and this and this and that, so the risk, the residual risk after this, the new management, I'm expecting to be this number. So I'm expecting to take a high risk from, let's say, 25, 20, or 16. After I have adding some of the new measures, I'm expecting to be, let's say, 8 or 9. So you take it from the high to medium or low. Okay? And then you give me the due date, like this is the due date to develop the new control measures. Now I'm going to give you an example. So this is the template. Risk section, risk name, risk category, risk owner, risk ID, status, date of assessment or the date when you start to write down the risk, description, initial risk index, likelihood times impact, preventive actions that I have, mitigation action, contingency actions, the expected residual risk, due date to complete my actions. So imagine I'm going to start to have a risk, writing a risk register. So risk section will be coming from the Infection Prevention Control Committee. So now we have the group of the Infection Prevention Control, and they are going to start to develop their own risk register. This committee is going to start to write down their own risk register. So the risk section is infection prevention and control. They call the risk name is surgical site infection. This is the risk. You accept this risk? Yes. So the risk category is clinical. Risk category for that surgical site infection is, it's not administrative. Is it administrative?
No.
Is it operational?
No.
Is it finance?
No.
Is it HR? No, it's clinical. So the risk owner will be the head of surgery department. Risk owner will be head of surgery department. Okay? So risk ID, IPC, infection prevention control, clinical, CLI, And I give it name. So this is the risk number 13 in the infection prevention and control. And it takes a unique number. Do you think we're going to have a unique number like this? Difficult. Right? So now I have a unique number for that risk. This risk is low priority or high priority? High priority. And it's continuous. This risk is not new, not old, it's continuous. Date of the assessment, let's assume that this is the date of the assessment. Okay? Now, let me identify this risk by the ICC approach. So what is the name of the risk? Surgical site infection. So I'm going to identify the risk using the ICC approach. So it's threat to the patient life. This is a risk. Threat to the patient life due to improper application of the infection prevention and control protocol during surgery. So the impact is threat to the patient life. Dies, die, whatsoever. Okay? So threat to the patient life due to improper application of the infection prevention control, because actually this is the infection prevention control. Okay? Due to improper application of the infection prevention control context during surgery. Easy? What is the initial risk index at that time, at that moment? Actually, infection is happening, I would say, like not every day. Actually, it's more than 6 times per year, right? So it will take 5. Likelihood would be like, I would say, likelihood 5. I would say likelihood 5. And when it happens, it might claim the life of the patient, or it might not have a major consequences, but not commonly claiming the life of the patient, right? So I would say like 5 times 4 equal 20. So at that moment, at that time, when I start to evaluate that risk, which is like surgical site infection, the value of that risk is 20. 20 is at the level of red, high priority risk. So what are the preventive action that I have at the moment? The preventive action that I have at the moment is I have the protocol. I already have the protocol. I wrote the protocol. I do have it because I'm doing analysis at the moment. I do have infection prevention control protocol. I also have the pre-operative antibiotic injection. Good, good. So one of the protective measures that you give antibiotic prior to the operation. Good. And what if it happened? So if this is to prevent infection from happening, correct? Now infection happened. Remember mitigation for the fire drain. Fire drain. How the people escape? Fire happened, people have to escape. So we do the fire drain to tell the people when we have fire, this is how we go out safe. So now infection happened. Now the infection happened. What should I do as a mitigation? To monitor the signs and symptoms of the infection. So I should know, I should prepare, I should teach, I should educate the staff on what are the signs and symptoms of infection. Okay? Or what are the symptoms of surgical site infection? What are the symptoms of surgical site infection, how they can diagnose it? All right? This is once when the infection happened, what I can know that how to early identify, how to early diagnose. What would be my contingency action? So now, infection happened. I discovered the infection. So what I will do? Now I have patient, post-operative patient with infection. What would be my contingency action? So I might have an access to a tertiary location if it's like major, or I might have an access to immediate transportation, or I might have an access to ICU. So in that way I can manage the patient. This is my current situation. That's what I have. Okay. I have nothing here because this is my current. This is my current. So I did analysis, I found this is my current. Now I'm going to have some action. I'm going to develop some of the Mr. America Shield. All right? So, the consequences of having post-operative infection, what might happen to the patient and family? How do you feel the patient and family will feel? Relaxed or angry? Satisfied or dissatisfied? Complaining or not complaining? Do you think if something bad happened and this patient stayed for a long period because of the improper management of cervical site infection and go into like toxemia, septicemia, or maybe die, do you think they are going to claim it or make a or request compensation?
Yes.
Of course. Consequences might be dissatisfaction, might be compensation. This is medical error. That's what I'm thinking. What should I do now? I should start to develop something. I'm start to have some shield. I'm going to do patient education. That when we do surgery, we might have infection, and the symptom of the infection is so and so. So once we have the symptoms, the patient can tell. So I can interfere. Yes, on time. So I can interfere on time. I'm going also to take a consent that we might have a proper complication out of this surgery. Do you agree? Do you agree that there is a potential of having consequences of that surgery, especially when you do dirty surgery, like the anal surgery, for example. So there is a high rate of infection. So you tell them, you educate them, this is like dirty place where we will do the infection. So the surgery, so might have a probability of infection. So you can educate the patient, you can have a consent. So in the mitigation, what should we do? Again, we educate the patient about that once we have this infection, so this is the measures we are going to do. Maybe like another surgery to clean and debridement of the wound. And also we can have a proper disclosure technique. So once we have the problem, I did the mistake. So the proper disclosure technique, do you think this will make the patient angry, feeling angry, or be like, fine doctor, it's okay? For sure it's making the patient different from not disclosing what happened to them. And if you say that we have done mistakes, we are going to work on this one, we promise that within a few days we're going to be okay. All right, no problem. Okay, I accept it. Right? So proper disclosure technique on what happened. So what about the contingency action? Again, proper disclosure technique about what happened, what might go wrong, and insurance against medical mistakes. So the company can do insurance for the company and for the hospital, and for the staff. So in that way, whenever there is a compensation, so the insurance can pay for that compensation. So I'm going to minimize the risk. So if I'm going to do this, so I might have minimizing the risk from like the measure which is like 5 or 4 to be 3. And the frequency from this to that, so I might go into residual 9. So if I implement this, I might go to the residual 9 rather than 20. And I will be doing this by the end of this sample because I started the assessment on May. By the end of the sample, I'm going to complete this rate. That's why I'm going to decrease the potential risk effect. You got it? So if you are going to develop the risk, you need to have a template to write down your risk. How you write down the risk? Simple. This is the simplest, easy way of writing risk. It's just writing the risk. Risk section, risk name, risk ID, status, date of assessment. Identify the risk, ICC, approach, impact, cause, context. Give me initial risk. What are the preventive action that you have? What are the mitigation? What are the contingency? No residual. In the future, I'm going to develop some actions to minimize the initial risk, and I'm expecting to be like this by that date. Okay? This is another one. Dental section. So now I'm going to explore with you dental section. So risk name is risk name is dysfunctioning dental chair. Let me tell you, dental surface depend on three things: dentist and dental staff, patient and dental chair. No more, no less. If one is missing, no dental service. Dental staff, client, dental chair. So the risk is dysfunctioning dental chair. So risk category is equipment. Risk category is equipment. Risk owner is dental administrator because he or she has to follow up with the proper maintenance, right? Risk ID, so it's dental, dent, equipment, and then you give it a number, easy. And then the status, imagine dental chair is not working. Do you have continuity of business? We lost the business. So this is high priority because it depends on business continuity. So what might be the description in terms of the ICC? So I would say, if I would like to describe that risk, I would say like loss of surface continuity, loss of dental surface continuity due to incompliance with the periodic preventive maintenance in dental department. It happens because we didn't do the proper maintenance, right? So likelihood to having 3, impact 5, initial index 15. What are the mitigation I have? Application of the PPM. What are the contingency plan I do? This is the residual as it's ongoing. There is no end because this is periodic preventive maintenance is an ongoing process. Okay? Now I'm going to leave you with this. You start to develop your own risk register. Start to write down the first risk in your risk register. Work in group of 2, maximum 3. Start to have one single risk.
Critical purchasing manager أو dental أو dental administration. لا أوكي. risk ID شو بنسميه risk ID؟ DNT /DNT كمان DNT تعمل window date of assessment اليوم 9 مارس 2001. Let's go for description now. Sorry, stage status, high priority or priority? Priority. Description. لا المشكلة احنا نصعب عليهم. بتصير ايوه بتصير اللي هو بتصير شو اسمه description اللي هو
ID, you can do it. Status,
High priority.
high priority. Date to date. Description.
Description is stop ICU service due to outbreak in the unit.
Yes, stop ICU service. Exactly, loss of continuity of business. Stop ICU service due to spread of infection in the ICU. Exactly. Initial risk index. So what's the frequency, the likelihood to happen?
It's
One.
very, we can say 1.
1. Okay. And severity?
5.
5.
Because the service
So the
conduct-
yes. So the initial risk index is 5.
5.
So what the preventive action that you have to prevent the spread of infection?
First, we have to evacuate.
No, what is the preventive action? This is
Preventive-
contingency in the
after this
evacuation.
incident, you mean?
No, evacuation is the contingency.
Mm.
But what do you have to prevent that risk from happening?
Isolate,
Isolate the patient.
No,
Isolate.
what you have to prevent spread of the infection. Infection control procedure, manual, training, hand wash, all of these are preventive actions.
But it's not in the.
It's not mentioned the schedule,
Which schedule?
the
The registrar.
The
Form.
the forms.
The prevention actions.
Preventive actions is not
Yes.
included.
Yeah, so that's how we.
Okay, so what the preventive action you have at the moment?
Apply all infection control techniques.
Yes, so application of
PPM,
the,
isolation,
policy,
gloves,
education.
hand masks.
okay, so PPM, PPE, personal protective, PPE, infection prevention control manual, training, all of these are preventive. Now, infection happened. What you have as a mitigation?
We have to isolate, evacuate
The area.
all.
Make the evacuation as a contingency plan. So if it happened, you early detection?
Early detection.
Yes, so early detection, early management.
Yeah, find the source of infection.
So find the source of, exactly,
And,
exactly. Now outbreak happened. Now if outbreak happens, what will be the contingency?
Evacuate.
Evacuation, immediate
Yeah,
sterilization.
sterilization for all area, swab from the staff.
Okay,
Get the swab.
so this is the contingency. Now what would be the residual likelihood of that one?
It should be comes to 3, and 1
Okay.
times 3.
All right, so will be the severity will be decreased. The severity will be decreased. So we will not shut it down for a long period of time. We might shut it down for small period of time. Yes, short period of time. So this is a good plan. Give me your plan. So give me your registrar.
Okay, we're talking about in the dental department.
So dental, so risk section is dental department, risk name.
Endodontic broken instrument.
Okay, so broken instrument, okay.
Okay, the risk category is clinical.
Clinical.
Risk owner is dental administrator or.
Here is administrator, you think?
It's,
Because this is procedure.
Was dentist.
Dentist, yeah, head of dental department. Head of dental department.
So yeah,
Because it's operational actually. This is
medical
operational.
director if you want.
Okay, but this is dental medicine, so he or she has
it was
to.
a combination between the purchasing department and dental.
But this is, it happens because I think we like improper practice. Yeah, that's-
Because he's overusing it.
Okay, let's continue hearing this example. This example is actually good as yours.
Okay, dentist is the risk owner.
Okay, dentist, head of dentist will be the risk owner. Risk ID, okay,
Risk
status.
ID DNT NA 001.
Okay,
Status priority.
okay,
Date of assessment today.
today.
Uh,
Description.
Description. Endodontic broken files of
Inside patient.
inside the patient's tooth. Okay. Due to low quality of the instrument and over instrumentation or overuse of the instrument
And
in
then
the dental
Right.
clinic.
okay,
Okay. The likelihood is 5.
5.
Okay, it's very high. The impact is 3 because it is not.
There is no loss of life,
Yes,
but we have loss of satisfaction. Okay,
yes. Yeah.
and pain. Patients have.
So the initial risk is
15.
is 50.
Excellent.
The mitigation action is using different brand.
Okay.
Uh,
So purchase quality, purchase of quality, quality instrument.
Yes.
Purchase quality instrument.
And also the limitation of the instrumentation or
Minimize the use of the instrument.
from to use it from 3 to 4 maximum.
Okay, so this will minimize the instance.
Color coding the instrument
Okay,
for each type of using, each time we are using, we can color code it or number it. Yeah.
Okay.
So now we will know how many times we're using the instrument.
excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Then
What if it happened?
contingency actions.
So now we have a broken instrument within the teeth or the tooth of
Okay.
the patient.
Removing the broken instrument
Okay.
if
The prognosis is bad.
What about yes? What about consultation? Having access to secondary consultation.
We are talking
Referral.
about endodontic doctors. So I don't think that he will go for consultation. He already know how to remove the instrument.
Okay. So okay.
But he will not remove it.
So
if the
immediate.
prognosis is good.
What about like disclosure for the patients to minimize?
This is what I'm talking about.
Yes,
This-
disclosure. Disclosure.
Yes.
100% disclosure.
Yes, okay, so
Disclosure.
okay, you have to do it.
And say sorry. Anybody have to say sorry?
You have to change it in your
Yeah, you have to say sorry.
disclosure.
Okay, so now it's good. Now we know how to develop our own risk register. Any question for the risk register? Yes.
How do we make sure of the consistency of the residual risk? Like if we
So
have due date.
after you start to implement this one, you're going to do the reassessment again. So that you said this is by December. Now you implement it. Reassess your risk again. See how frequently it's happening at the moment and what is the severity at the
So
moment.
we cannot put it from the beginning.
No, you can't have an expectation.
Expectations.
Expectation, and then you work, and then you test it. Remember, like monitoring and evaluation and communication, or not have what have changed.
So the time frame is up to the risk owner to
Yes, to decide.
decide.
Okay. Any question till now? Okay, let me show you the one I would like to show you because this is risk. No one talk about it. Median available, please. Yeah, median available.
I'll come back when I can.
There may be no coming back. Dr. Bailey was right. Your symptoms suggest that surgery needs to happen now. How many people can you help if you're dead or blind
Patient fall. Have you considered patient fall? You didn't consider patient fall as a risk.
Medication error.
Yeah, medication error. So please, when you do write your example, remember to write the patient. Okay? Let's imagine yourself living in a world. Imagine yourself living in a world without having an indicator for the petrol in your car. So you are living in a world without having an indicator for the level of the petrol in your car. What might go wrong?
Fuel can and we will not know.
I don't know that.
So all the people are going to stuck in the road and no one will go home, especially if you are on the highway. Right? Imagine yourself. You are at the bank and you would like to dispense million of a currency without having the counter for that currency. So you dispense the million and you start with after the first 1,000.
Count.
Now it's like, let's say that it's 200,000 and 1 and 2 and 3 and you have someone disturb with you and where am I? How much? It was like 200, 1, 2, and don't remember, so you have to repeat again. Imagine yourself at the hospital and you have two types of pipe, one for oxygen, one for nitrogen in the anesthesia in the operating room, and then there is no color coding. What might go wrong? Imagine you use your mobile without an indicator for the battery. So, this is what we call it book your care case. This is the things that we use to prevent the error from happening, to prevent failure from happening. And in fact, this is what we also call it the existing control measures. And as I said in the previous presentation, this might be in the form of policy, process engineering, re-engineering of a process, training, simulation or maintenance. But the point is, when I would like to measure my existing control measures or the Buka-Yuka or the barrier that I have, I would like to ask myself 3 questions. Number 1, do the existing control measures adequate? For example, we are in this room. We have here, like if you look at the top, you will find like we have a fire detector and we have water sprinklers, right? So is it adequate to prevent fire from happening?
No.
This is can early 1 to detect fire, 1 to fight fire. All right? So imagine, actually, this is the fire alarm. It's already there, but ask yourself, is it implemented? Does it work? You might have a kind of fire alarm, but it is not working. You might have the extension, but it is not filled or expired. So, do the existing control measures adequate to prevent the risk from happening, from materializing? Are they implemented? Number 3, are they effective to overcome that risk? So whenever you are going to develop or whenever you are going to do analysis for an existing control measures, ask 3 questions. Are they enough? Are they implemented? Are they adequate to control, to prevent that risk from happening, from materializing? Why it's called Buka-Yuka? Actually, this is, as I said earlier, this is a Japanese term. It has started in Toyota manufacturing system with a very famous Japanese engineer, Shigo Shengo. Shigo Shengo found that his staff usually, when they produce one of the items, they have a high frequency of defective items. So he started to have a method in place to prevent people from doing the mistakes. So they have to develop one single item. This item consists of patterns and two rings. So he bring a bowl, he put the patterns, put the rings, and gave it to them. Once you finish with this one, take the bowl, refill it with two items, and start to complete the work. Finish again and again. And in that way, they will not miss one single item within this product. At the beginning, he called it Bakayuki, and it refers means like idiot proofing, means like who did this one is an idiot, or this is like something we have it again the idiot people. They said that this is not proper, so that's why they convert it into Bakayuka, like mistake proofing. So this is something we have it to proof against, to resist the mistakes from happening. Alright, so we actually have two kinds of failure. We have an internal failure and we have an external failure. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to develop measures to prevent failure from happening at the first stage. We are trying to develop measures to develop failure from happening at the first stage. But if, for example, failure happened, what we would like to have, we would like to have things that early discover that failure to correct it or to prevent that failure from reaching to the customer. Because if the failure reaches to the customer, this is what we call it external failure. In our case, our customer are patient and families. And we actually do this to develop our Bakayuka because the cost of the failure, the cost when the failure reaches to the customer is huge. It's huge. It might affect your reputation. It might affect, it might close down, you might lose the customer. And if you lose the customer, you might lose the business. You might have a bad reputation. There's lots of bad things that can happen. A lot of calls and repeated calls for the repair of what you have. A lot of calls and repeated calls for the claim, and maybe even a legal aspect against you. That's because of failure. So what we need to do, develop measures to prevent failure from happening. Or even, as I said, If the failure happens, you can early detect it. Imagine you are dispensing medicine. So you dispense it, you need something in place to prevent dispensation of wrong medicine. But what if the wrong medicine is dispensed? You need to have something in place to early detect this one from reaching the customer. So maybe the nurse or the pharmacist can recheck that failure, that product dispensation of the medicine to avoid that medicine, the wrong medicine to go into to the patient. So when should I use the Buka-Yuka? When should I use the mistake proofing? When should I use the existing control measures? Number one, when there is human factor in place. So whenever there is a people are involved in the process, try to find something to avoid the potential failure. We are human do mistakes. So whenever there is human factor in the process, try to have Buka-Yuka in place. Whenever you are involving the customer in the process, 100% try to have more and more Buka-Yuka in place. Whenever small mistake can lead to major disaster, here you should have a Buka-Yuka in place. Okay? So how to start to develop your own Buka-Yuka? What you need to do, you need to have like a flow chart of your process. You need to develop a flow chart of your process. And then think, what might go wrong with this process? And then put barrier to prevent this process from failing. Put barrier to prevent the process from failing. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that we would like to go into the process of medication dispensation. So the process of medication dispensation starts by a patient visiting doctor, and by patient receives medicine, right? So let's say that I'm talking about the medication dispensation per se, only medication dispensation, right? So doctor prescribe medicine. So I will start by going into medication dispensation, okay? Medication dispensation. I would like to have developed Buka-Yuka in place in the process of medication dispensation. So I will start by writing the flow chart for this process. So start by patient visiting doctor, end by patient receive medicine. Okay? So the first step is doctor prescribe medicine. Then patient visit pharmacy or patient visit nursing station, either here or there. Let's go here. So here pharmacy, yes, check prescription, pharmacy dispense medicine, patient receive treatment, right? So what might go wrong? What might go wrong is doctor prescribed medicine, maybe the doctor prescribed wrong medicine. So what can I have here? So the risk is wrong prescription, right?
Yes.
So what can I have here to prevent wrong prescription by the doctor? This is what I'm going to go to my head. Patient visit the pharmacy, nothing wrong with this one. Pharmacy check medicine. What might go wrong here? Maybe wrong interpretation, especially for look-alike, sound-alike. Right? This is potential, this is risk.
Lookalikes and the like, doctor, this is a pharmacist issue, not
Yes.
the doctor.
Yes, pharmacy, I need pharmacy.
No, I mean, it's not from the doctor.
Yeah, we are working about medication dispensing. So we have risk at the doctor side. We have risk at the pharmacy side. At the pharmacy side, maybe the problem with the medicine is lookalikes and the like. Okay? Or we might have distraction.
busy.
Distraction of the pharmacist while dispensing the medicine. It's a potential risk? Yes, it's a potential risk. So, what I can have here for the doctor, if the doctor prescribing wrong medicine, if I have a book in place, for example, policy of double check before dispensing, before writing or dispensing the patient himself out of the clinic. So this will minimize. I have what we call first client review. First client hit the doctor. I have first client review. So double check by the doctor, him or herself, will minimize the error of from prescription. I can have this by policy, process, and training, by audit. What about in the pharmacy? Distraction might be a risk. So what would be the mistake proofing here? Maybe prepare medication in a noise or a distraction-free zone. Right? Prepare medication in distraction-free zone. What about lookalikes and the like?
Checking up before.
Yes. Yeah, this is
check.
yes,
the
exactly.
prescription.
Double check by another pharmacist, another bookkeeper. What about lookalikes and the like? Labeling. Labeling lookalike and sound alike. Differentiating them, putting them in different places. Identifying that what are the lookalike sound alike lists that we have. Minimizing lookalike sound alike in the pharmacy. So in that way, the potential of getting wrong medication dispensing will be decreased. So what I have done, I went into the flow chart of the process, identified all the potential risk that I might have in that process, start to develop Kayuka in place to prevent this from happening, which is good. So in that way, I'm going to minimize risk. So what can we do with this? So actually, there's many methods that we can use to eliminate risk, especially by the booking. So the first thing we can do what we call it self-inspection. Yes, doctor review his or her prescription, self-inspection. Second, we can do successive inspection. So the pharmacist can review the doctor prescription. And for example, doctor, excuse me dear, doctor, you prescribe a tablet for a child. Successive inspection. Or maybe I have a source inspection. Source inspection, for example, if you are going to do an operation in the operating theater, so you have someone who inspect the operating room before doing the theater, so source inspection. For facility management, so to avoid fire, you have some people in place to inspect the security and safety of that place, so source inspection. Maybe you can do something we call it setting function. How you can set function? For example, to avoid having patient with fever, so we can set the function of the thermometer whenever it is above the acceptable level, so we have beep. So you can set function in the instrument. Once you have a critical reading, you have beep, you have alarm. So this is one of the setting function. Or even what we can have in setting function will be motion step or sequencing methods. For example, sterilization. To do sterilization, we have well-known methods like receiving the contaminated, washing, disinfection, drying, packing, sterilization, storage. So we have methods, we have steps, we have motion sequence. So we need to go into this sequence to avoid improper sterilization. So maybe you have a fixed value or grouping method. Nowadays you have a big container of tablets, right? Sometimes you have a big container of 200 tablets. So imagine you are going to dispense medicine for the patient. That patient is taking tablets 3 times a day for 1 month, mean like 3 times 30, 90. So So how can you dispense 90 out of 200 jar? 200 tablet jar. So now in the pharmacy there is tablet counter. So if it's a function of that tablet counter, around like 90, so you put some, you set it 90, you have 90 tablets. The other way around, today here you are going to take 3 times per day for 1 month, so in 1 month, so in 90, so count after me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, this is not proper. Nowadays you have the tablet counter. Okay?
Also, ready-made
Package.
month medication.
Yes, ready-made multiplication, but sometimes nowadays big hospitals depend on tablets in jar to minimize the cost. Okay? Or actually you can refer back to the manual. So if you are following the procedure manual for maintenance and for operation and for sterilization, in that way you can like increase the life expectancy of that device or equipment. Okay? The other way for the PUCA, what we call it regulatory function. Some of the regulatory function that we can develop, for example, having warning function. Warning. Example in the radiology department, having this famous photo, the yellow post for the pregnant lady in the radiology department is important. Imagine it's me as a doctor who would like to prescribe, request radiology X-ray for a patient, and I forgot to ask her, are you pregnant? And then she went into a junior radiologist or radiology technician, and he or she started to directly implement the request by the famous consultant doctor. Maybe the patient can see this and say, hold on, I'm pregnant, and this one, oh, okay, sorry, doctor, please. So the doctor can come back and say, okay, we're going to postpone this. It's not proper at the time. So maybe you have a kind of what we call rewarding function. Again, the light, the fire alarm, everything give us like light or beeps. All these are what we call it warning function. Again, also we can have a control function. Let me give you some of like the latest activity that we have. Have you ever went? You always go to have like I said lunch or dinner somewhere else. So if you go, for example, to Chili's, for example, and you make an order, so you find that the lady will come to you and say, yes sir, how can I help you? What would you like to request? So I'm going to request, for example, steak, medium well, and let's say juice, okay? So after you finish what you have ordered, she's going to say, let me tell you again. So you requested steak, medium well, and you requested this kind of juice. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So in that way, it's a kind of PUCA you can place. Now go for Marks and Spencer and give cash to the lady or to the man at the counter. You take your own cash and you give it to the man or lady at the counter. Sir, you give me 20 BD. Yes, dear. Okay, I'm going to give you the rest of the 20 BD. Yes, sir. Otherwise, you give her the 20 and then, or give her 5, and then she gave you the remaining. I said, no dear, I gave you 20. No dear, you gave me 5. No dear, I gave you 20. So now we have kind of PUCA calculations. Okay? So this is simply what we can have as a control measures against risk. Now we are going to shift to the prospective analysis, failure mode and effect analysis. Now this is one of the most important risk management methods. If you remember, we already talked about this method yesterday.
Yes.
We talked about it in the domain of having patient safety culture. And it was the last point of having patient safety culture, to have a prospective analysis for the potential risk. And in fact, this is your current, for that module, final assignment. Failure mode and effect analysis. So, what is failure mode and effect analysis? We are going to know the method, the history, the uses, and when to use and how to develop failure mode and effect analysis. So, failure mode and effect analysis is a kind of step-by-step approach to identify what might go wrong in the future for a normal process. So you can start to plan and prevent this potential risk that might happen and prevent it from happening, and minimizing the potential number of the risk if it happens. Okay? And when we talk about it, so we are going to talk about like what is the failure, what is the normal process, and what is the mode of failure, how can we fail, and then we are going to analyze the rest of the process. Failure mode and effect analysis. A regular process, a day-to-day operation, something you do every day, something you do every day. And then you are going to think, how could this one fail? Or what are the potential failure for that regular, normal operation? And then you are going to do analysis. It's failure mode. So normal process, fail in 1 or 2 or 3. And then you're going to do analysis, like how frequently it failed. How, when it failed, what is the severity of that fail? And then, if you remember, ISO depends on frequency and severity. Failure mode added detectability. Is that failure detectable? So I'm going to have another number, detectability. And we are going to look into, do we have a book in place? Do we have barrier for that failure at the moment? Because if we don't have barrier, so we are going to build the barrier. And then we're going to know a number. If you remember in the risk management, in the ISO, we times frequency times, we multiply frequency times severity. Here we are going to multiply frequency times severity times detectability. And then we are going to have a final number. And then we are going to compare every failure and see the highest one. This is the major problem we need to work on first. Okay? So this is simply the process. We're going to have it in details. Hold on. So when they start to use the failure mode and effect analysis, they start to have this one in the military service in 1940s. And then from the military service, they take it to the aviation service. And it worked. It was successful to minimize the consequences of lots of accidents. So from the aviation, they took it into the construction works. From construction into the mechanical field works. Now it's in the healthcare field. So now FEMA is applicable and used in the healthcare service business. And as I said, we depend on the analysis, and out of the analysis, we are going to look into the severity, frequency, or occurrence, and detectability. So again, when to use the failure mode and effect analysis? When a process, product, or service is being designed or redesigned. So you are going to start a new project. So for the new project you are going to design, you need to think of failure. What might go wrong? So if you are going for a trip, you are going for a trip in the future, so ask yourself what might go wrong and start the failure. And again, you use it before you develop a new plan or a control plan. And again, I said you use it, especially failure, when there is like a human factor in place, you use the failure. Okay? When you start to have the failure, you're going to develop a team. You are going to develop a team. That team is going to work on a certain process. So, the first step is identify process. Second step is identify team. Third step is draw the process. 4 is analyze potential failure. So as I said earlier, we have different methods of analyzing risk. We can do a retrospective anticipation of what might go wrong. So we do a future-wise analysis of what might go wrong. This way we are using failure mode and effect analysis. And sometimes we are doing what? We are looking into the hazard, the risk that happened. And we need to learn from that experience. So we go and analyze why the failure happened, why the risk materialized. In that way, we are using the very famous root cause analysis. So in this presentation, we are going to use the root cause analysis. In the root cause analysis, actually, we have two different tools. The first tool, we call it 5 whys. The second tool, you call it Ishikawa fishbone analysis. So let's start by the first one, the 5 whys. The 5 whys is a quality tool started in Japan by the famous Japanese industrial person, Sakichi Toyoda. This is the founder of the Toyota industry. This is the founder of the Toyota industry. He found that his staff are doing lots of mistakes. So he started to ask himself, why my staff, who are the employee, why the workers are doing these mistakes? So he started to tackle one single mistake and start to ask questions. What might be the causes of that mistake? And then he started to take each cause. He started to take each cause and ask himself 5 times why that cause happened. Then he got the answer in the second why, and the third why, and the fifth why. And he found that the best answer for that cause, or what I can say, the root cause of that domain of the problem, is the answer number 5. In quality literature, they said don't go beyond 5 and don't go less than 5. If you go, you can start at 5 and you start to improve. And then you can restart the cycle again, ask yourself, why I still have the same failure? So as I said, started by the Sakichi Toyoda, this is the son of carpenter, king of a Japanese industry. I'm going to show you an actual event that happened in the United States. This event, it's a very famous case study that's been taught in most of the business schools. How they implement the 5 whys. Have you heard about the Abraham Lincoln Memorial? You didn't? Okay, so I'm going to show you the Abraham Lincoln Memorial.
The Lincoln Memorial, sitting on the end of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., is a moving tribute to President Abraham Lincoln. The monument is built in a Greek temple style with a statue of Lincoln sitting pensively at the center. Lincoln's statue is flanked by carvings of his 2 greatest speeches, the Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural address. The memorial has watched over many notable events, including the March on Washington in 1963 and Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. The Lincoln Memorial can be seen on U.S. currency, in movies, and in person for free 24/7. Lincoln is widely recognized as one of the greatest presidents in American history, which makes his memorial especially fitting.
So our story started in the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, where they applied the 5 whys. Let's see and hear to the story. As you saw that in Abraham Lincoln Memorial, the exterior surface, the memorial is built on the Greek Roman style. And the director of this place found that they have to re-maintain the memorial so frequently. So he has a lot of expenses he had to spend on repairing of the memorial so frequently. He found that the white exterior surface of the memorial is getting deteriorated, and he has to spend money to repair the white exterior surface of the memorial. So it was a problem. So he asked the head of facility management to come to his office, and he started to ask him questions. He said, we are spending a lot of money to fix and maintain the exterior surface of the memorial. So why? Why we are doing this? Why the exterior surface of the exterior surface of the memorial is getting deteriorated? So the head of facility management said, actually, sir, because we are spraying high power spray water to clean the exterior surface of the memorial. This is the first question, this is the first answer. Then the director asked the facility management, why? The second question came, he said, because the exterior surface, the external and exterior surface of the memorial get dirty by lots of pigeon drops. Explanation. Then the director of the memorial asked the director of the facility management, why we have these lots of the pigeon drops specifically at our area? He said, sir, because the pigeons come and eat and feed on a large number population of the spiders that come to that are present around our field area, especially in the dark. Okay, the problem is so easy. The problem is in the spiders. So he said, okay, request the pest control to come and do their work. In that way, we are going to overcome the problem. Finish. So he sent him with a message like, call the pest control, spray all around the memorial, get rid of the spiders, and that's it. But still, with time, they still have facing the same problem. So he called him again. I said, what happened? Why we didn't get rid of the problem? He said, sir, we still have pigeon drops. He said, why? We killed the spider. Why do still we have so much number of the spider again and again? He said, sir, because the spider come and eat and feed on large number of the worms, creeps to our memorial. So the problem was with the worms. Then he asked him, why we have this large number of the worms, creeps to our memorial field? He said, actually because the worms are attracted to the warmth and light around the memorial. He can ask him why we have the light, but this is not logic, because we need the light to enlighten the memorial. So he said, okay, so this is the point. So you have in suggestion, he said, sir, I would say that if we switch off the light early before the sunset, and we switch it early before the sunrise, in that way we're going to minimize the amount of the light, we're going to minimize the amount of the heatness, we're going to minimize the amount of the worms around in our field. In that way, maybe the number of the worms decrease, or creeps to the memorial decrease. Actually, they implement this process, and what they have found, there was a significant decrease in the number of the worms creep to this memorial, because they shift to another place where there is more light and more worms. Therefore, the number of the spider decrease, the number of the pigeon come to eat this number of the spider decrease, the frequency of the pigeon drop on the surface of the memorial decrease, the frequency of cleaning, maintaining the exterior surface of the memorial decrease. So when they go into the 5Y, that's what happened. So from this story, we can say like, why would the stone deteriorating? Because of the high power spray they use. And why? Because of the bird droppings. Why bird droppings? Because bird come and feed on large number population of the spider. Why? Because they come and feed on the worms. Why? Because of the lighting system. So if we manage the lighting system, the root cause of the problem, so we can have an influence of the problem, we can solve the problem. So whenever you have a problem, what you need to do, first ask yourself, what might be the causes of that problem? So now you have a problem. All right, fine. Now you have a problem. Now I have a problem. So I have to ask myself, what might be the causes? So this is cause 1, this is cause 2, this is cause 3, this is cause 4, for example. Then I ask myself, what might be the root cause of cause number 1? So the causes are domain of the problem. So if you are, for example, in a system, maybe the first cause related to people. Maybe the second cause related to the system. Maybe the third cause related to the process. Maybe the fourth cause related to the material. Then ask yourself, why people fail? So people fail because, why? Because. So that's why people fail. Ask your system, why the system failed? System failed because a reason. Why the reason happened? Because a reason. Why the reason happened? Because a reason. Then you take the answer number 5. This will be the root cause of that domain of the causes. So that will overcome. If you solve this root cause, you're going to overcome that domain of the causes. You're going to have an influence of the problem, positive influence of the problem. Is it easy? This is a method. This is a tool that you can use to understand the root cause of the problem. So imagine now you have a risk. If we go back to our risk was improper. Our risk was improper sterilization, right? So the problem that we have, this was the problem. Improper sterilization, right? So we say that we have many causes. One of them is non-working, non-functioning, autoclave. Why? Then we can reach to the end. Or might be because of improper sterilization. Why? Then we can go to the root cause. Maybe because of number 3 was non-functioning indicator. If we go down, we can know why. What is the root cause of non-functioning?
For example, the first one.
For example, the non-functioning autoclave. Okay, non-functioning autoclave. Why? Because, for example,
No preventive maintenance.
no maintenance on time. Why? Because there is no periodic
Really,
preventive maintenance.
Okay.
Why? Because there is no commitment in the system, for example. So why? Because no policy on periodic preventive maintenance. So now we can go for the root cause. When you go to whys, don't go and say that no enough fund, no enough money, no enough staff. When you fail 2 things. Fail system, fail process. Don't fail people. When you're going to fail at the root cause, don't go to fail the people. So you do nothing. Because you think that if we change the people, everything will be perfect. This is not the answer. Fail the system, fail the process. Fail the system, fail the process. So here I'm going to fail the system. The system has no policy and process on periodic preventive maintenance. And therefore we don't have a periodic preventive maintenance. Therefore we don't have a regular checkup of the instrument. Therefore we didn't identify early that machine is not working. Therefore the machine was not working. So if I go this way, I'm failing the system here. So this one, if you're going to fail people that they didn't do the sterilization in a proper way, fail the system, fail the training. Okay? And if we are going to go for the next tool we can use, we can go and use the fishbone analysis. Fishbone analysis has been developed by the very famous quality guru Kaoru Ishikawa. Kaoru Ishikawa said that whenever I have a problem, I can analyze this problem using fish as a model of analysis. So he said that because I'm Japanese, because he's a Japanese person, he said that whenever I have a problem, I'll put the problem rather than the head of the fish, and then I'm going to identify the main domain of the problem. So this is problem. This is the negative effect. This is the negative. Maybe in our case, this is the risk, that the consequence of the risk. This is the consequence of the risk. The very negative thing that happens because of the risk. Okay? So this is the problem. Let's say why the problem happened. The problem happened because of domains. Again, maybe because of people, maybe because of planet, means where the place where we are working. Planet means place we are working. Maybe because of the policy and procedure. So this is the place, this is the environment. Okay, this is the facility where we are working. So maybe because of the people, maybe because of the planet, maybe because of the policy and process, this is the system. Okay, maybe because of people, profit, people, planet, policy and process, maybe because of the system as well. Okay, so you're going to find domains. You're going to find domains. Sometimes you can use another method, another domain, especially if you are working with product. So now this is defective product. So it happened, the failure happened because failure of the people, failure of the material, failure of the machine, failure of the method. We call it 5M. So this is manpower. So the failure happened because of the manpower, of the method, of the material, of the machine, of the measurement. Maybe again they have added of the mother nature, which is the environment where they are working. Maybe in the maintenance. Maybe in the money, the finance. So you have many reasons why you have a failure. So you can use the Ishikawa fishbone as a model of identifying why the consequences of the risk happen. So in that way you can prevent the risk from happening. Okay? So all of these, all negative things here. So then you can decide what might go wrong with the people. For example, people. What might be a root cause in the people so they can fail the process? Maybe low knowledge, low skill, no training, maybe exhausted, maybe disturbed, maybe fatigued, maybe the people are not willing, maybe not engaged, not empowered. So all of these are root causes in the people that lead to defective whatsoever. What might be in the machine? Maybe old machine, non-maintained machine, complex machine. What might be in the material? Maybe expired material, old material, not suitable material for that product. Okay? Shortage of material. Maybe what about the method? Maybe old method, complicated method, no training on the method. What about the mother nature, which is the environment? Maybe hot, so cold, so humid, noisy, lots of distraction, crowded. All of these factors are contributing factor to fail the mother nature, the environment. That's why we have an effective product. Okay? Imagine some people are working during the summertime outside the facility. Do you expect like perfection out of those people? No way. Why? Because the reason they contribute to the mother nature. Alright? So this is how you can do what? You can do a root cause analysis. This is how you can do a root cause analysis. Now I'm going to shift to the last presentation, which is about the po-tie analysis. This is a wonderful method. Now let's go for the final presentation, which is the barrier-based risk management po-tie methodology. Do you know the bow tie? You know the bow tie? Have you seen bow tie before? Okay. So it looks like, papillon, it looks like this is a bow tie, okay? So this method, when we draw that method, it looks like the bow tie. And this is how it looks like when we complete it. So when we do complete the bow tie risk management, this is how it looks like. So let's have a look how it started. Actually, it started after an event happened in the oil and gas industry. That event happened in the North Sea, north to the UK, in a rig called Viper Alpha. This was a major event that happened, and after that, the company Shell, the Dutch petroleum company, started to look, we need to find a method to minimize the hazard, to minimize the risk, to avoid such event from re-happening again. So they found in the literature, in one of the literature in Australia, a method like the bow tie. So they start to adapt this method and work on it to have a kind of risk management solution. Shell people like this one and start to invest in developing the bow tie. So bow tie is at the moment is used in the aviation. So lots of the companies, lots of the airports are using bow tie as a method of analysis of the potential risk. Used in mining, used in chemical, in the healthcare, oil and gas as well. Bow tie at the moment is implemented as a trial version in Sheikh Khalifa Medical City in Abu Dhabi. The good thing about bow tie is actually it's a visualization method. It's not detailed method. It's a visualization method. It's a kind of chart. It's a kind of chart that you can develop so everyone can know that what are the potential risks for this process. So it's a visualization method. Again, we can call it, it's a communication method. So that the people in place, the management can communicate to the people in the surface that in this process, these are the different kind of risks, and this is what we need to develop to prevent that risk from happening. And if the risk happens, that's what we are going to use to prevent the consequences from that risk. So it's a kind of communication as well. It's a kind of a guideline as well. This method, as from its name, it's called barrier-based. See, in that diagram, we have something, we call it barrier. So this method depends on the concept of the barrier developed by James Reason. James Reason is the owner of the very famous Swiss cheese model. Have you heard about the Swiss cheese model? So James Reason is the owner of the Swiss cheese model. So what is Swiss cheese model? The Swiss cheese model says that in any system, in any process, in any system, you have many processes. Sterilization, you have many processes. So the first one, to have, by the end of the day, you have a sterilized equipment, you go into many processes. Process number one is washing. So when you do the washing, you get rid of most of the material coming from the patient. Then you do disinfection. So the second process is disinfection. So in terms of if washing fail, disinfection might work. The third one is your dryness. So this is another method. So if washing, disinfection fail again, like this one can work. Then packing, the sterilization. So in the sterilization, to complete the full shape of total sterilization, free from whatsoever organism, right? So imagine if there is a failure in the washing, disinfection will work. Imagine there is a failure in disinfection, sterilization will still work. Okay? So we said that in a system, if we have a potential risk and we have different processes, if we have a defect in all the process, so the risk will end in losses. Again. So imagine every process sterilization, many steps. Imagine we have in every steps defect. So the organism at the beginning that I would like to do sterilization will pass from the first step, will pass from the second step, from the third, from the fourth, from the fifth. By the end, I have the organism still alive. Why it happens? Because I have many defects in every process. But whenever I am going to implement having a barrier, I'm going to stop that risk from materializing, from happening. That's what he called it Swiss cheese model. And actually, he didn't give it the Swiss cheese. One of his students came from one of the trainees, came to learn this method, came from South Korea. He was pilot. Once he saw the model, he said, this one looks like the Swiss cheese. So that's how they gave it the name of the Swiss cheese model. So this is what I'm talking about. So you might have your steps everywhere. You might have a defect here, but in other process, you have a barrier. That barrier will prevent that defect from passing to the next level. Exactly like the germ. Germ can pass because of a defect in the washing. Germ can pass because of the poor material I'm using in the disinfection. But when I do a proper sterilization, the germ will not pass. The germ will be died. So what I'm doing, I'm having barrier in the place. So how can I develop this bow tie in place? So first, I need to have what we call it the normal, regular process. Because the people who started this method coming from, they are psychologists. So they have like a different name. Let's imagine the hazard, this is the regular process. We call regular process as hazard. So regular process means this is the normal function that you are doing. Remember femia? The regular function. Extraction of tooth. Regular function. Doing analysis. Regular function. Doing the round. Regular function. Examining patient. So first you need to identify what? You need to identify the regular function. So here I'm going to write regular function. This is what you are doing on a daily basis. That's what you are doing on a daily basis. First you need to identify the regular function. Okay? Fine? Then you identify a potential risk to that regular function, which was broken tooth. They call this one the top event. So the top event make it the risk. So this is the risk. Broken tooth. Now let's do the analysis. Look at this, look at that. Why I started with femia followed by root cause analysis? Because this part is femia and this part is root cause analysis. This part is femia and this part is root cause analysis. Now we're going to see. So, based on our example, our regular process is, the regular function was extraction of tooth. This was our regular function. The risk was broken tooth. This was the risk that might happen to the regular function. Then I need to identify the threat, the reasons the things that might happen and lead to the top event, lead to broken tooth. So what might be the threats that lead to broken tooth? So here I need to identify the threats. The causes that will lead into the risk. The causes, the attributing factor that will lead to the risk. Okay? Easy? And then I need to identify if I already have a broken tooth, what might be the consequences? So I need to identify the consequences when the risk materializes. Then I am going to develop barrier, Mr. America Shield, to avoid that risk lead to bring me the risk. The preventive. You remember when we do the FEMI analysis? Remember when we wrote down the risk registrar, the preventive measures? So I'm going to develop what? I'm going to develop barriers to prevent that threats from giving me the risk. And again, I'm going to develop barrier because when I have a broken tooth, I would like to minimize the effect of that broken tooth. I want to minimize the consequences, like the angry patient, for example, or the complaint, for example, or a compensation, for example. So those are consequences. Angry patient, dissatisfied patient, pain, complaint. All of these are consequences of the broken tooth, correct? The hazard or the regular function, this is whatsoever process you are doing on a daily basis. Whatsoever, you are doing regular monitoring for the operation. You are doing daily reporting to the top management. You do the same. You are doing monitoring of the process. You are doing patient examination. You are doing laboratory function, right? Or testing. You are doing. That's what we are doing. So this is usually what we call it the regular function. Second, so maybe the regular function be sterilization. Maybe the regular function becomes surgical operation. Maybe the regular function may be like patient observation. Maybe the regular function is data management. Regular function. You know what? Driving car. Driving car is a regular function. Let's analyze driving car. Okay? Let's analyze driving car. Okay? Then, top event is the risk. And I want you to memorize that photo because this is the most important thing about the risk. This is risk. So, usually you have the fish within the bowl. The risk is fish outside the bowl. Remember, this is the risk. Fish outside the bowl. But still, fish is alive. It's in the air, not on the ground. She's still alive. Fish is still alive. Right? No major damage. It's only outside normal environment. Deviation from normal. Something happened, but no consequences yet. This is risk. Driving car. Driving car is a regular process. Risk, lose control. The risk is losing control. Still I'm alive. Still the car is intact. But the risk is to lose control. This is the risk. Okay? Let's have this. This would be nice. Did we finish too? So the regular function is driving car. Risk is losing control. So what might be the causes of losing control? Now we're going to talk about how we can describe causes. But now we know what's risk. It's deviation from normal, something that might go wrong while you are doing your normal, regular process. Threats. When we talk about the threats, we can classify threats into people, equipment, environment, operation. So, what might go wrong? Something might go wrong with people. Or equipment. Or operation. Or environment. Environment. People. What might be the threats in the view so you can lose car? Maybe, for example,
Another part.
distraction that's happening in the environment. The person, untrained driver. So, if I have untrained driver, he will be easily losing control, then I have a consequences. Ill driver, poor vision driver. All of these are contributing factor, causes that might lead to losing, intoxicated, drunken.
Overspeed.
No, maybe let's have this in the operation. But people may be intoxicated, drunken. So all of these are contributing factor, causes in the people. What might be in the equipment, in the car itself? So dear, by the end of the day, I would like to summarize what we have taken today. So, what we have taken today, number one, we have introduced to the relationship between risk and strategy. Then, we identify what is risk. We say this, whatsoever negative that can happen and prevent us from achieving the stated objectives. And then, we went on why we should have a risk management. We talk about like the importance for the quality, for the safety, for the commitment of the organization and management to the community and to the government as well. And we talk about the ISO 31000 framework for risk management. We said that we need to establish context. And to establish context, what we need to do, we need to identify the area that we are going to analyze the risk. We need to know the scope, the kind of the surface we are going to analyze, the kind of the product we are going to analyze. We need to know the involved people, what are their expectations, what are their needs. And then we need to do analysis, either internal analysis using the SWOT or external analysis using the BEST. After that, we are going to have an area to start to analyze what this is the scope of the risk. Then we need to start to identify what is the potential risk. So we do a brainstorming about what might go wrong that happen and affect us from achieving the objectives. We have different kind of questions that we can ask. We can ask what might prevent us from achieving the objectives. We can ask where is the area we need to focus on most, where is the area that we spend money a lot, where is the most complex process that we do, what might fail us. So we have a lot of questions that we can ask to generate a list of risk. And then we said we're going to have an analysis for that. So we're going to analyze in terms of frequency or likelihood, and we're going to analyze in terms of severity. And we're going to give the value from 1 to 5 in both sides. Then we are going to make an evaluation of the risk, where we're going to multiply likelihood times severity. This will tell us which will be like the low priority area, medium priority area, high priority area. And then we need to develop a plan to manage the risk. So you either accept that risk, because sometimes the risk is like external, okay, like environmental issue or a new law. So you cannot stop working. You need to accept that law, or you need to accept the environmental situation where we are working. So sometimes you have risk, you need to accept the risk, or sometimes you need to have an alternative. You need to have to start to treat the risk. You can treat the risk either like avoiding the risk. So whenever there is a high risky process, you can go and say, I will not do that process. In that way, you avoid the risk. Or you might look into a more alternative, less risky area, and you choose it. So you might go into alternative, but not risky, or alternative and less risky. Or you have another option. You can transfer the risk, where you can do either outsourcing the service, which is risky service, or you can have an insurance for that risky service. Or finally, you need to control the risk. So you know that you have risk and you need to start to do control for that risk. Either by establishing documentation in terms of a policy, process guideline, manuals, do training, engineering the process, re-engineering the process, train the staff, having periodic preventive maintenance, do mitigation, do evacuation, and you have a lot of things to do to control the risk. Once we finish with the ISO framework, we shift to the what we call it Puka-Yuka. What Puka-Yuka is a kind of barrier we develop, or protective shields that we develop to prevent that risk from happening, or even if the risk happened, so we can mitigate that risk. Then we have been introduced to the prospective analysis for the risk, which is like FMEA, failure mode and effect analysis. And we know that to develop failure mode and effect analysis, what we need to do to identify normal regular process, and then what might go wrong, potential failure, what would be the effect of that failure, and then we start to do the analysis, the severity, occurrence, and we added detectability for the FMEA analysis. Once we finish with the FMEA, we shifted to the root cause analysis. So FMEA look into the future way, prospective analysis for what might go wrong. Root cause analysis look into the disaster that we have, or the error that we have, and what was the contributing factor for that event. So we learn from experience. And then we ended up by using the POTI barrier-based risk analysis. So POTI, it has two components. One, looking into the future, and one, looking into the consequence of the risk once it happens. I hope you enjoyed this day, and I'm looking forward to see you again, inshallah, in the next module. Thank you very much.
Thank you.